Thank you.
Hi, Congressman.
Hi, good to see you, Lourdes. Great to see you.
Gemma comes up right behind them to do the.
Tom Burke and Jacob Humberger over to your right, where they're sitting at the table. Two beside the guy.
Okay, and who's the VP?
That's the two of them. Tom Burke is the new president of the national. So he's the national president of the That's his executive director, James Corbett. He's also the only executive director of BSO.
Am I going to just introduce everybody? Okay.
No, you're not really going to introduce everybody, but I think you're going to be
Call out. Uh, all right. Is this on? Good morning, everybody. I'm sorry that we're beginning not on military time. I know that if you were running the meeting, you'd be here early. But I'm used to Riverside traffic, not Los Angeles traffic, so my apologies. I want to make an announcement for all the participants. You can hear me on the speaker. If you speak into the microphone and can hear yourself in the speaker, that is good enough for the live stream. You will need the microphones because we will need it for the folks live streaming. So you definitely need to speak into the microphone, the directional, and so speak into it as you see me speaking into it now. So again, you need to speak directly in the microphone. We do need you for the live stream. I want to thank my colleague, Representative Brad Sherman, for being here. We do expect Representative Sydney Kamlager-Dove to join us. And I see that County Supervisor Letia Horvath is also with us. Supervisor Horvath, you're still a very young person. I remember when you're even a younger person on the West Hollywood City Council. It's been a while since we've had a chance to see each other in person. So wonderful to see you here. So good afternoon, everybody. It's still, I think, it is afternoon. I want to thank you all for joining us here today in Los Angeles. And I want to give a special thanks to Jim Zenner and his staff for hosting us here at the beautiful Bob Hope Patriotic Hall. So thank you, Bob. So let's give him a hand. And I believe this is a county facility. Am I right? And so the county, you've done a tremendous job in preserving this beautiful, beautiful place for our veterans. So congratulations to the county as well. As the ranking member of the Veterans of the House Committee on Veterans Affairs, I'm privileged to work alongside many veterans and stakeholders in this room to improve the lives of those who've served our country. Our conversation today is long overdue, but timelier than ever. I'm going to be honest, in this climate, there are a few issues that transcend politics. And I know some of us in the room right now do not share the same politics. But we are here because we share a goal, one of the most important goals. We all want to end veteran homelessness. We all know that to achieve that goal, we must address homelessness right here in Los Angeles. And that includes by seizing the opportunity we have to revitalize the Soldier's Home to its intended purpose as a community for veterans. There is so much momentum around this issue, largely due to the advocacy of the veterans in this room. But that momentum must be met with more resources and more oversight, and that's why I'm here. Thank you, Representative Kamlager-Dove, for joining us. So good to see you. I want to hear directly from veterans about how things are going on campus and what issues they still face. You are all out there doing the hard work every day, continuing your mission to care for your fellow veterans and to help them access resources. and I'm here to help you meet that mission. With that said, I'm very disappointed that the Department of Veterans Affairs and my Republican committee colleagues chose not to participate in today's discussion. Sir?
I recommend that we start the meeting with the flag salute, please.
Oh, thank you so much. That was an oversight. I thank you very much. I appreciate that. When we all stand for the pledge.
Raise your hand over your heart and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. And so, as I was saying, I was disappointed that the Department of Veterans Affairs and my Republican colleagues on the committee chose not to participate in today's discussion. I do want everyone to know that they were all invited, and we encouraged them to attend. I'm particularly concerned and frustrated by the lack of transparency VA has shown Congress, the public, and veterans about its plans at West LA. VA has gone about as far as has gone as far as we can to require anyone working on the West LA project. So VA has gone as far as that it can to require that anybody working on the VA West LA project to sign non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, so that they cannot talk to anyone, including Congress, about what VA is planning. I requested a list of all those who are required to sign these NDAs, and VA has not responded to my request. I asked for copies of the NDAs, and VA has refused to provide them. It has taken years to rebuild a semblance of trust among VA, the community, and veterans when it comes to the soldier's home. And that trust is extremely fragile. These non-disclosure agreements are a violation of that trust. I know many of you share my frustration. We deserve transparency. And even though I disagree with the president about practically everything, I'm as eager as he is to see the soldier's home become a community for veterans and to see us establish a Center for Warrior Independence at West LA. But VA and the administration need to work with us to make that happen. This project is going to require funding, and I'm ready to ask my appropriations colleagues for that money. But I need to know how much I need to ask for. VA asked for it asked for $530 million for major construction at West LA in its budget. But it hasn't provided a shred of detail as to what those dollars would be used for. At the end of next week, VA is due to submit its action plan to the president about how they are going to implement the executive order for West LA. I have yet to even see a preview of that plan, and VA has refused all my staff's requests for phone calls and briefings on the plan. Yes, you did hear that correctly. VA has refused to meet with my staff and brief them on anything related to West LA since January of this year. We are just as in the dark as you all are. VA is doing the president a disservice by presenting him with the final product of an action plan that does not have the input of the people sitting in this room, the stakeholders. We have no clue what types of housing VA is considering adding on campus, whether that housing will be transitional or permanent, and which veterans would be eligible to live there. We've heard rumors that VA may prioritize construction of more transitional housing in lieu of permanent housing, which would be an enormous shift from the current development strategy at the soldier's home. I would have serious concern if this rumor is true. I believe that the public and most importantly, veterans should have the opportunity to see the plan and comment on it before VA sends it up to the president for approval. VA only has 10 days to make this right before their action plan is due on Friday. With the decades that the soldiers' home wasted away under mismanagement and corruption, VA should know better than to operate in secret when it comes to making plans for the land. Veterans deserve more. We owe it to veterans to come together to work on this, and that is the entire reason I convened this roundtable, to bring much needed transparency back into the process. There may be dissent and disagreements today, and that is okay. I'm here to take some heat, and I'm here to find common ground. We need to have these views out in the open so that we can chart a path forward together. Now, I want to be clear, today is not the end of this conversation. Tomorrow, my staff will be on campus to conduct listening sessions with veterans to hear directly about their safety and security concerns. I'm committing right now to come back to Los Angeles when VA releases its plan to implement the executive order so that we can have a follow-on conversation about what veterans like and do not like about it and how I can best support those efforts. I hope that VA and my colleagues across the aisle will join us for that conversation. In the meantime, I will get to work in DC on any legislative proposals that come out of today's conversation. Now, I want to reiterate that I hope that everyone in this room will use today's conversation as an opportunity to do a reset of sorts, an opportunity for those of us who may not agree on everything to find common ground. Let's treat each other with respect so that we can have a productive conversation to further our goal of ending veteran homelessness. Now, I'm pleased to recognize my friend and colleague, Congressman Brad Sherman, for any remarks that he may have. Congressman Sherman.
Thank you, and thank you for your leadership, Mark. I'm Congressman Brad Sherman. I'm proud to represent the Soldiers' Home, also referred to as the West LA VA. And at my insistence, this November election, which proposes new districts, whichever way people vote, the facility will still be in my district. I want to thank Ranking Member Takano for organizing this meeting. We're gathered to focus on not just one facility, but the issue of homeless veterans here in Los Angeles County. I'm told there are 3,408 homeless veterans. In a perfect world, our economy would be so good that employers would be offering very high wages to every one of them. The VA would have provided such mental health and other care so that every one of them could be a prosperous citizen, able to pay even high Los Angeles rents in the private sector. But that is not where we are now, and it is up to us to find housing for these 3,408 individuals who served their country. Now, this effort builds on a long history of congressional action. In 2022, under Ranking Member Takano's leadership and with Senator Dianne Feinstein and Congressman Liu and others, we passed the PACT Act, the largest expansion of health care and housing benefits veterans have ever received. Importantly, that law included hundreds of millions of dollars for permanent supportive housing at the Soldiers' Home. In addition to the PACT Act, we have put other funds in appropriations bills. I fought for this through the earmark process, and there is substantial funding. The master plan calls for 1,200 permitted supportive housing units. Some 500 have been completed. Some $381 million was provided by the PACT Act, And that is just one element of the funding. Keep in mind that whenever we get funds for housing veterans at the Soldiers' Home, there are two other sources of money, and in effect, the money we get is tripled. There is the HUD-VASH voucher program, and there is the low-income housing tax credit program. But even $381 million with those multipliers is not sufficient to build housing for all 3,408 veterans, and of course, doesn't assure that that housing is built immediately when it is needed. There's a particular issue that I focused on, and that is a rule that the Department of HUD had dealing with HUD-VASH, saying that when you look at the eligibility of a veteran to live in these buildings, some will, of course, have such income that they don't qualify if they have a high enough income. But they insisted upon including VA disability payments in that calculation of income, disqualifying the very veterans who you'd think you'd want to benefit from this program. First, because of how much they've given to our country and become disabled, and also because their presence right there at the hospital makes sense, because disabled veterans have more need on average for health care than those who are not disabled. I pressured HUD at several different occasions. They finally reversed that policy, but now it's time to make that change permanent. We've got the Housing Unhoused Disabled Veterans Act, which would exclude disability payments in calculation of eligibility for HUD-VASH. It passed our committee, the Financial Services Committee, 49-0, and it has passed the House without objection. It has passed the Senate Banking Committee. Now, I know that we have an executive order that calls for, or at least a Trump plan that calls for spending $530 million. That would be tremendous. The president can write an executive order, but what really matters is how much money is appropriated. I know Mark knows this better than I, and will correct me if I'm off a bit on this, but it's my understanding that the Milcon VA bill that has passed the House does provide $1.75 billion for veterans construction. But that's for hospitals and clinics and cemeteries and housing nationwide. And there is no indication that a third or a quarter of that money will be spent at the Soldiers' Home. The Senate bill, which was bipartisan, unlike the bill I just described that was just voted on by Republicans in the House, does provide $53 million for housing at the Soldiers' Home. That's an important step, but it's not $530 million. So I look forward to working to get the funds to build the housing. It is a beautiful facility, and we should remember the philanthropists who provided that land to veterans. What's missing is not the land. What's missing is the money to build the housing. Finally, I want to join Ranking Member Takano in his concern about these non-disclosure agreements. And this issue goes beyond the Soldiers' Home, beyond veterans. It is an issue of nationwide concern and government-wide concern. If the executive branch tells people that it's illegal or a contractual violation to talk to members of Congress about issues of public policy, then we don't have a democracy in this country. So I look forward to a day when there are no homeless veterans, not in LA County and not anywhere in America. The words homeless and veterans should never be used in the same sentence. And I yield back.
Well, thank you, Congressman Brad Sherman, for your presence today and for your comments. I'm thrilled to that Congresswoman Kamlager-Dove was able to join us today. And since we are sitting in her very district here at Bob Hope Patriotic Hall, I think it's very appropriate that she is here. Congresswoman Kamlager-Dove, I recognize you for any opening comments that you may have.
Thank you so much, Ranking Member Mark Takano of HVAC, House Veterans Affairs Committee, for working with your committee to convene this very important issue, talking about the prevalence of veteran homelessness in our county. My name is Sydney Kamlager-Dove. I'm the Congresswoman for the 37th Congressional District, and you all are sitting in the heart of it. Of course, wherever I go, I say we're in the heart because I love all parts of the district. But I'm especially excited to be here at the Bob Hope Patriotic Hall, and I want to thank them for hosting us today. You know, for nearly a century, this hall has stood as a pillar of veteran support in downtown Los Angeles. And in fact, I am actively working to secure its designation as a National Historic Landmark ahead of its 100th anniversary in February of 2026. You know, so many of us drive past Patriotic Hall and we don't think about why it's here and how long it's been here and why it is so important that we celebrate it and that we make sure that we are funding its upkeep. I want to give a special thanks to Jim Zenner, Executive Director of the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, for revitalizing this hall. And I want to thank all of the veterans who showed up today. You know, we are here to listen to you. We really are. Your stories, the challenges, the obstacles that you face, and your dreams for how to have a Veterans Affairs Department that really works for you. And I would especially like to give a shout out to someone who works with me on my team, Congressional Gold Medal Fellow Travis. He served in the Army and now he is going back to school. So his first day of school was here at USC. We're going to love all branches today, even though I'm calling out the Army. So just want to give a shout out to Travis. As I mentioned, I'm not here to speak a lot. I am here to listen. And I'm also here to make sure that you know that I support our veterans community. My grandfather served in the Army, and he was able to build a life for my mother and my aunt and my uncle and me because of his service and what it afforded him. And I just hope that every single one of us who is touched by a veteran understands that we have an obligation to stand up and support you and call out when shadiness is happening, when a lack of transparency seems to be running amok, and when your questions are not getting the answers that you deserve. Because if nothing else, you deserve our support, resoundingly and unapologetically. I want to echo the sentiments of Congressman Brad Sherman. House Democrats work to deliver on the PACT Act, to deliver $1.6 billion across this country for our veterans. I want to say that I have put in my congressional community funding project an ask to help create or to fund the Los Angeles County Veteran Wellness Program to the tune of $250,000, because we know that mental health access, holistic care is certainly important to our veterans across this county. And I want to let you know that last week I introduced the Enduring Welcome Act to reestablish the office in charge of relocating our Afghan allies who worked with our servicemen and women in Afghanistan to protect them and to keep them safe. And now they are at risk of being repatriated back to Afghanistan, and probably bad things will happen to them by the Taliban. We have an obligation to protect our veterans here, and we also have an obligation to stand up for our allies around the world who put their lives on the line to protect us, to allow us to protect this country. I will always stand up to support affordable housing development, access to health care, and access to righteous benefits. And I just want you to know, not only am I so grateful that you're here in the district, but I'm glad that you're giving us your time and sharing your stories so that we can go back to Washington and actually tell our colleagues what you are facing, how you are being challenged, and why you are not going to sleep on these issues and continue to stand up for what you know you deserve from this country. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Representative Kamlager-Dove. I appreciate your being here today to listen. Um, I now would like to, as I said, we're joined today by Los Angeles County Supervisor Lindsay Horvath, who represents the district, the supervisorial district that encompasses the West LA VA. Thank you, Supervisor Horvath, for being with us. I'm happy to recognize you for any opening comments that you have.
Thank you very much, Representative Takano. Thank you for your strong leadership on this and so many issues. We appreciate you convening this discussion, and I appreciate being included. I know that the magnificent West LA campus is located in my district. We are committed to doing whatever we can to support our veteran community, as well as working in partnership with the federal government to realize the full potential of this property. We know that it includes, successful approaches include identifying long-term permanent housing solutions, of which we have supported while I have been in office. And it is an approach that we take countywide. And I want to acknowledge from the county, our director, Jim Zenner from Military and Veteran Affairs. I believe Emilio Salas is also here from LA County Development Authority, and Molly Reisman from our newly formed department addressing all issues of homelessness, housing, and homeless solutions. So thank you all for being here and the work that you do throughout the county on this and so many other issues. And the number that Congressman Sherman has indicated is one that we've heard, but one that we in the county haven't been able to drill down to. We actually, according to the by name list that we have in the county, estimate it to be closer to 14 or 1,500 folks who are identified as unhoused veterans in Los Angeles County. And it's important that we get that number right, which is one of the reasons why the county has stepped up to lead in this effort to consolidate work that is being done throughout the region, making sure that we are tracking numbers and resources, and most importantly, serving those who have served our country so well. If there is a role that the county can play, whether it's providing vouchers for housing being developed on campus or carefully stewarding our county land that surrounds it, whatever it takes, we are all in. We want to support the VA in ending veteran homelessness in Los Angeles County, period. We have the resources, whether it's the couple thousand unused VASH vouchers waiting on the shelves of Los Angeles housing authorities, or the hundreds of project-based VASH units that are sitting vacant. And I want to also recognize Lourdes Castro Ramirez from the city as our city partner, because it is the city and county working together, providing vouchers to make sure that the housing that is built can be occupied sustainably in an ongoing fashion. And it takes all of us working together to make that happen, including the VA. These tools are essential to ending veteran homelessness, and we must do everything possible to ensure they are used to provide the housing and care our veterans deserve. Our County Department of Veteran Affairs has a 3-year strategy to reach functional zero. And our director continues to staff up his team to work with veterans to access the resources that are available, often stepping up in the spaces that should otherwise be occupied, but making sure that the work that needs to get done actually gets done. These are difficult times that demand bold leadership from all levels of government, which is why I chose to be here today and appreciated the invitation, because there is no time to waste on this important issue. So I look forward to uniting around shared goals to support our community who has given so much, and to make sure that the county is the partner we need to be in this effort. Thank you very much.
Wow, Supervisor Horvath, thank you so much for your opening comments. I'd now like to thank Lourdes Castro Ramirez, the CEO of the Housing Authority of the City of Los Angeles, for joining us here today for this conversation. Ms. Castro Ramirez, I would like to recognize you for any opening comments that you may have.
Yes, absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you again, Ranking Member Takano, for hosting this roundtable. On behalf of Mayor Bass, who has been a steadfast supporter, leader, and champion for ending veteran homelessness, I want to also extend appreciation to Congressman Sherman and also Congresswoman Kamlager-Dove. Thank you for hosting us in your district. And of course, Supervisor Horvath, thank you for the strong, steadfast collaboration. We know what it takes to address homelessness in our region. It is an all of government approach from the federal, state, and local level. And in the city and the county, we're working closely to build more housing, to connect services, and to advance the goal of ending homelessness, specifically veteran homelessness. As mentioned, I'm Lourdes Castro Ramirez, and I serve as the president and CEO of the Housing Authority of the City of LA. We are one of the largest housing authorities across the country, serving over 200,000 people, providing public housing, Section 8, and also producing more housing that is affordable. Last year, I had the privilege of joining Mayor Bass, who serves as the chair of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, specifically as the chair of the Homelessness Task Force. She led a delegation of 50 mayors from across the country under the U.S. Conference of Mayors convening in D.C. to advocate for stronger policies to address veteran homelessness. And these meetings proved to be very fruitful. The committee's work, specifically Ranking Member, your committee's work with Treasury and the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development led to a change in policy, as you've already mentioned, ensuring that disability benefits were not counted towards income eligibility. This resulted in removing a barrier that too often prevented unhoused veterans from accessing federally funded housing. Congressman Brad Sherman, we are so grateful for you, for your steadfast leadership on this issue, and for authoring and championing the Housing Unhoused Disabled Veterans Act, which would make this change a permanent change, excluding disability benefits from income calculations so that veterans are not shut out of the very housing that they need. No one who has served in this country should be experiencing homelessness. And we are all committed to continuing to do our part to ensuring that we're building more housing, that we're also bringing more services, and that we are working in partnership with organizations like the organizations that are present here today. To that end, at the start of this year in January, in partnership with Mayor Bass, the Housing Authority of the City of LA, along with our colleagues at the LA County Community Development Authority, led by Emilio Salas, US Vets, and the Realtors and Apartment Association, we launched a campaign called House Our Vets, a campaign that builds on this momentum at the federal level to continue to work towards utilizing every single HUD-VASH voucher that the city and the county has at its disposal. Since then, over 100 property owners have signed up to be part of this program. This is in addition to the 1,000 or so property owners that are already participating in the program. We also have seen the successful move from being on the streets and moving into housing of nearly 300 veterans from both the city and the county. At HACLA, we are proud to be one of the largest affordable housing providers in the state of California. And at the West LA campus, we have also partnered on 3 project-based voucher buildings. We've committed 174 rental subsidies under HUD-VASH, and we are continuing to advance significant redevelopment and development efforts across the city. The 3 housing communities that have come online came online in 2017 and 2023. 147 units are currently leased We are working with applicants to get to 100% utilization. We know what works, housing paired with services, and an all-of-government approach, along with the community partners that are working with us day in and day out. In LA, we are seeing the results. The most recent point-in-time count showed a decrease in unsheltered homelessness by 7.9% within the city of LA. This is progress. This is progress that we need to continue to maintain and address. We are, of course, deeply concerned about the proposed changes at the federal level as it relates to HUD housing programs, and we're proactively working to sustain the progress despite the challenging time. We look forward to continuing this partnership and moving the needle, and I look forward to the comments, input, and recommendations that will come from this roundtable. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lourdes Castro Ramirez, for your comments. Now it's my honor to introduce the veterans who are here to share their experiences with us. These veterans have continued the mission to serve their country by dedicating a significant part of their lives to helping their fellow veterans. For that, we're all grateful. We have here with us today Rob Reynolds, Jeffrey Powers, David Etchavaria, Francisco Juarez, Robert Ham, Letia Subtle, Diego Garcia, Robert Canis, and Juan Mack. Welcome to all the veterans. If it were not for all of you, we'd be in a much different place. I especially want to acknowledge Rob Reynolds. I'm not sure we would be here today if it were not for Mr. Reynolds' steadfast advocacy and work on the ground. He is responsible for a significant portion of the progress that we have seen to date with the development of the Soldiers' Home. So, Mr. Reynolds, where are you? Oh, down here. Okay, there you are. Mr. Reynolds, your work has saved countless veterans' lives, and I want to thank you for everything you do for your fellow veterans and how helpful you've been to me and my staff. And with that, I want to recognize you for your remarks. Mr. Reynolds.
Appreciate it. And thank you. I appreciate you guys for putting this together. I think this will be a good discussion today. My name's Rob Reynolds. I served with the U.S. Army Infantry from 2006 to 2010. I served in Iraq. I first came to the VA in 2018 to get services, and at that time, there was basically nothing on the property, and there was veterans sleeping all outside the gates of the VA. It was really a sad sight to see, and it was actually quite shocking to me to see that veterans who serve this country are sleeping and dying on the streets of Los Angeles. I helped work with all of the veterans that were out on San Vicente Boulevard. There ended up being an encampment set up known as Veterans Row, where over the course of 2 years, hundreds of veterans came through this encampment trying to get services at the VA. And I worked with many of the veterans that were just named here in this room that have been a tremendous help in getting those veterans off the street. And they're now in the tiny sheds or the tiny homes that are on the property. They're starting to move into permanent housing, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And I think that one thing that we always need to remember is the history of this property. At one time, there was upwards of 5,000 veterans living on that land before Los Angeles was the nation's capital of veteran homelessness. And after the Vietnam War, those veterans were evicted from that property, and illegal leases started coming on that property. The VA started renting out to Brentwood School, UCLA, oil companies, Marriott Laundry Services at one time. A VA contract officer and parking lot operator defrauded $13 million out of one of the parking lots and went to prison for it. So there's a long history of corruption that's gone on in this property. And I think it's also important to mention that the first case, there's been 2 lawsuits. The first lawsuit filed in 2011 was filed under the Obama administration and litigated under the Obama administration, and nothing happened. Under Trump's first administration, the Veterans Row encampment started. Under Biden's administration, a second lawsuit was filed. And that's where we are today, is we've had 2 lawsuits one that's still going through the Court of Appeals at the moment, a Veterans Row encampment of veterans that serve this country sleeping outside the gates of the VA. And it's taken all of that to get the very little progress we have today. And it's so important that everyone comes together to finally fix and end this once and for all, because it should have never happened to begin with. And we need to get our veterans off the street. And I'd also like to say that I'm very thankful for President Trump's executive order. This is the first time I've seen or read anything where the President of the United States has taken a position that this is a soldier's home. It was intended for a purpose, and it's supposed to house veterans, and also mentioning that there is these illegal leases on the property with Brentwood School, UCLA, the oil company, Safety Park, that have been paying way under market value for that property they're not even supposed to be on. And it was really great to have the president acknowledge that, because through my experience for years, that's the one topic no one wants to talk about. No one wants to talk about these illegal leases. I've seen it so many times where I go into meetings and rooms and no one wants to bring it up. They just want to act like it doesn't exist, don't want to talk about it, and it needs to be talked about. So again, thankful for President Trump's executive order. Now, with that, how the VA has handled this executive order, I'm not happy with. On May 9th of this year, President Trump issued that order, and within that order, it said that they needed 120 days to present a plan to the president about how this property is going to be transformed and used. And this would have been a great opportunity to build the trust, meet with the veterans that live on the property, speak with the advocates, many of whom are here today, that have been trying to get that property turned back to its intended purpose, and just hear what they have to say, get their input. Because I've seen over the years how this goes. When you have meetings behind closed doors and you don't consult the people that are affected by it, there's going to be problems with that plan. And we're going to have to deal with that come the next 2 weeks when it comes out. I think that that's really unfortunate. Now, when it comes to the housing on the property, I hope we get into these discussions, but there are a lot of things that we need to see. Veterans are afraid to go to work. There are a lot of veterans that I speak with that live in those buildings that are afraid to go back to work because they're worried that they will price out of their units and become homeless again. That is a big concern I hear a lot. They're also afraid to go back to school because of the regulation around that and being in affordable housing. And I hope that this is something that we can work out, because right now, as it stands, you're just warehousing people in apartments without resources. That doesn't do good for anybody. You need to be able to get back out if you can, work, go to school, have things that you want to do. When it comes to the VA property, we've talked a lot about safety and security. And I think that one thing that's important to mention is that there is a piece of property that was the original part of the original land of the VA. And it's now an armory for the National Guard of California. And there is a county project to add a 165 bed shelter for non-veteran homeless at that location. Now, I'm very concerned about that, and I do not think it's a good idea to add that right next to the VA when we're currently working on trying to deal with the safety and security issues on the campus or on the property as it is today. I'm worried about where these people will go during the day. Will they be wandering through the campus, the property? Those are a lot of concerns that I do have, and we have issues that we need to work out, especially when it comes to safety and security. And I believe that throwing that into the mix could just cause more problems. So I look forward to having this discussion today, and I appreciate everyone for being here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rob Reynolds. I too welcomed the president's executive order. And as I said, I disagree with him on virtually everything else. And so I generally do want to work with the president. This is an issue about the non-disclosure agreements and the way that that veterans like you have, we just don't know what's in the plan. And the safety and security portion of our concerns and your concerns really gets down into the details about how various aspects of this development move forward. And we need to look at, the devil is really in the details here, and the details have not been available. So thank you so much for your testimony. Next, I'd like to recognize on my list here Mr. Powers. I'm going to turn to you. I want to acknowledge and thank you for the very important, brave position you took as the lead plaintiff in the litigation against the VA. I appreciate everything you've done for your fellow veterans, for sharing your time with us. But before I turn it over, I just want to, again, Mr. Reynolds, you're mentioning about why veterans are afraid to go to work. The work that Mr. Sherman has done on the legislation to address the issue of becoming ineligible for the housing because of the income. I also just want to say there's a layer of complexity beyond Mr. Sherman's legislation that involves all the other people who might have been involved in the financing. So it's not just the federal piece. So there's a lot more to do. So Mr. Sherman is a necessary part of it. But that being said, I wanted to take away from Mr. Reynolds, you as the lead plaintiff. I want to thank you for sharing your time with us today, Mr. Powers, and you're now recognized. You're over here. Sorry.
Thank you, Congressman Takano. I appreciate you inviting me to this today. I feel it's very important. I'm sorry, a little bit nervous. Okay, so like I said, thank you for inviting me. I was kind of saddened to hear from you that the Republicans were invited and none showed up. I am a Republican and I'm disappointed in them. So I just wanted to get that out there. Representative Sherman, I want to thank you for your hard work in getting the disability thing done, because it was really, we had so many veterans who were in the most dire need, but could not get into any of the programs because they made too much. And so that was a really a very important step forward. You know, one of the things I've noticed is that everybody seems to be on the same page on what needs to get done. And I think one of the problems is that we need to step back and take a look at what isn't working, because there's a lot that isn't working. And I think one of the most important problems that we have is this tendency by the VA to farm everything out to third parties. And then we get the third parties pointing at each other saying, oh, no, it's them. They say, no, it's you. And nothing gets done because nobody wants to take the responsibility for the inaction that's going on. So if I could have one wish, that would be to end all of the third party involvement and have the VA directly responsible for taking care of veterans. That's what the department is for. They have a $500 billion budget. There's no reason that they can't take care of the veterans' needs. I want to also echo what Rob said about the problems that we've been facing. I too am very happy with the executive order and very, very disappointed in the lack of follow through. I was happy with the way our court case went, but it seems to be hung up in the appellate courts. So we have no idea where we are on that. Anyway, I just want to thank you all again.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Powers. And I too concerned about the appeal of the case. I largely agreed with what was going on in Judge Carter's decision. But you know, it's going through the appeals of the Ninth Circuit. Thank you, Mr. Powers. Mr. Etchavaria, where are you, Mr. Etchavaria? Thank you so much for being here today and for the work you do to help veterans. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, thank you for acknowledging that. I didn't think anyone was watching. I started actually when the tents were going up out on Veterans Row. I've always held, I just can't understand how veterans can wind up homeless in this country. You know, I know for certain one way to end veteran homelessness is stop sending us to war. But I know that's not going to happen. So this home is going to have to be here for quite some time. We're still have not quite felt the effects of 20 years in Afghanistan in the Middle East. And we're going to start feeling that in the next 4 to 5 years. My biggest thing is I don't understand what the holdup is. You know, that first lawsuit was settled almost more than 10 years ago. And the construction that's supposed to have resulted from that was supposed to be completed almost 10 years ago. And now the VA and everyone else is asking from today, at least another 5 or 6 years before they complete what's supposed to be done almost 10 years ago. I'm pleased that as I go to the VA, and I'm there 2 or 3, 4 days a week, the little by little that it's happening. You know, and I take a little bit of satisfaction because I think if we didn't have the advocacy we have or do some of the things we've done, nothing would be happening. But it's just not happening quick enough. It's you know, sometimes it's a little disappointing. And I'm gonna speak to the larger area of Los Angeles. We hear stories and we see they spent millions of dollars, but still we don't have people off the streets. You know, now there's a big case about the money, where did it go? How do you account for it? Well, you know, we're missing opportunities. And I'm here. I'm just hoping that, like I said, we all seem to agree on what needs to be done. How can we do it? Where's the obstacle? Where's the stoppage? Where's the lack of concern? And I'm not a big fan of the current occupant of the White House, but I'm grateful that at least he acknowledged veterans. And I'm hoping that it's not just another promise. Quite frankly, I'm hoping that he attacks veteran homelessness, particularly in LA and across this country, like he's attacking, well, you know who he's attacking. So you know, and I don't say that lightly. And so I'm just here. I hope as we go along, I hope even in these few moments I've said something intelligible, and that something that we could draw action on. And I do appreciate the invitation, Mr. Connell, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Etchavaria. Thank you so much for being here. Mr. Juarez. Mr. Juarez, where are you? On the other side? I need a seating chart. I used to be a teacher. I need a seating chart. Mr. Juarez, please,
Yes,
go
sir.
ahead.
My name is Francisco Juarez. I'm with the NHDVS Coalition. We are the only coalition that backs up the intended land use in the deeds per the language, the terms, conditions, spirit, and intent of the deeds. There's no other group, to my knowledge, in here that does that. Some say that, but then they want to have a town center that includes a 450,000 square foot mega mall. And that publicly accessible mega mall. And that's contrary to what the deed says. I heard that this home will be here for quite a while. Yes, like permanently, as mentioned 5 times in the deed, permanently maintained as a home. I'm here because of World War II veterans who I met years ago when I was in AMVETS. Before the internet, they used to challenge the land grab by going directly to the director. You go to the director now and he'll tell you, I'm here to listen, but I can't take any action. So we have our group here, there's 6 of us right here, and there's 2 of us on the phone in front of me, one from New York and one from North Carolina. Our advocacy spreads across the country because it's based on truth. So we have an uncompromising position. And one word that I did hear earlier that I have to agree with, and that's the word stewardship. Not management of the national home. And this is a national home. It's not a Brentwood home. It's not a California issue. It's not a county issue or LA City issue or Santa Monica City issue. It's the national home for disabled and homeless veterans, and it needs to be stewarded correctly. Look up the difference if you don't know. A bipartisan action requires that you be proactive. And simply saying that they haven't answered you because you reached out to them, that's not totally proactive. But I did also hear that you have to acknowledge the things that haven't been working. And the things that aren't working are the things that have been put in place during other administrations. Bipartisan means that there shouldn't be any politics here. And politics was mentioned at the offset. politics is Kool-Aid. And there's been a lot of Kool-Aid served around this room. And we're here to tell you that we don't take it. All right. I came here in hopes of hearing about beyond the home. I came here in hopes of hearing about the CNH tract that could solve the 3,400 homeless veterans immediately, because UCLA has student housing on it. They took that land. They promised they would build a hospital. They never put a shovel in the ground. They reneged on that, and that land is part of the footprint. We can take those homes right now, and we can fix that problem right now. And Congress members, I hope you are taking that note, because you need to look into that immediately. There's also the beachfront property that exists at Lot 8 in Santa Monica Beach. That property was part of a vision that attests to a home that should have been permanently maintained, but that's not in the narrative here either. So these are things that we have discovered. Maybe I'm talking too fast. Maybe these are things that you need to look at before you start making other plans. We too have tried to reach the people in the new administration that are supposedly going to roll out this September the 6th plan. And I have to admit, we haven't been given a name of who we can talk to. I was hoping that the VA could tell us. And that's another thing. Let's stop making a boogeyman out of the VA. You know, the VA did this, the VA did that. The VA only runs one half of a program on the homeland. It's not a campus, it's homeland. And it only runs one half of the program there. Everything else is run by either UCLA or other third-party parties. So let's keep that in mind. Don't make a boogeyman out of the VA. Make a boogeyman out of the people that have been administering this disassembly of what the land is supposed to be. The deed restrictions speak. The deed restrictions speak for themselves. You're cutting into my time here. The deed restrictions speak for themselves. That is the original master plan. There's been variations of master plans because you can't get it straight. The master plan is in the deeds. It's in the terms, conditions, spirit, and intent. Can you have, well, that was a 19th century agreement. Well, can you have that in the 21st century? By all means you can. It can be done, it can be completed, but you have to acknowledge the intended land use. And you cannot have publicly accessible mega malls and hotels and all the other crap that's been offered to be there. It's for veterans only, where their body, their mind, and their souls are nurtured and returned back to civilization. This is how this place used to run. And we need to go back to that. We need to visit that. Right now you have 99-year EULs. EULs don't belong on there. EULs belong outside of that, but not on the homeland. It's already a homeland. You have VASH and HUD in there. You don't need VASH and HUD there. And you don't need to measure somebody's income because nobody paid rent before. Veterans had paid their dues. So you need to keep that in mind. And yeah, there's been a long history of action, but that long history of action has been not by the current administration that thankfully put out this executive order that favors taking a look at it the way that we have been advocating for. So when we do that, we might crack open a bottle of champagne and celebrate then, but not until that time. There's no negotiation other than when is UCLA going to remove itself from the property and when is Brentwood School going to remove itself from the property. They don't belong there. They're in the way. Level the playing field, start using those buildings and that stadium for the veterans as they were intended. There's a, let me look at my notes. I've been taking notes as I've been listening to folks here. Before funding, Basically, folks, there's a land racket that's taking place. It's been taking place there, and nobody wants to admit it. If you wanted to admit it, you would acknowledge that there's a much larger footprint than the 388 acres they've been telling you about. There's property that goes up to the side of Getty that is recognized as an official federal footprint. But we can't waste our volunteer time to fight that battle until we convince you that things haven't been open and honest up to this point. But now in light of what's going on, we can sit together and say, okay, the deed does say this, and the deed is the master plan, and there shouldn't be any negotiating on it. We should be calling for enforcement of that law, of the 2018 OIG report, and other legal actions that have taken place for that. We should be using Judge Otero's clause that he left. If this matter fails to resolve itself, that his ruling stands, and all the leases, including UCLA and Brentwood School, are void, therefore illegal. There's no need to transition it over to becoming a park. That Admiral Mullen is wrong about that. And there's no need to negotiate with the Sawtell community groups because they have no input here. They have no ownership here. The government owns the property. And why is the original deed in the library of UCLA? You have a land grabber holding on to the deeds of property that belongs to veterans. We're going to go back. We're going to get that deed out of there and put it back in the hands of the government. That's described party of the second part. So I hope that you all can understand that there is another side to it, but they don't want to listen to this other side. They want to silence our voice, or they want to spin it and say, we're for this, but in the end, they're not telling you they're also for a plan that brings in a town center that really ruins the property. So let's all be honest, and we'll be willing, our coalition will be more than happy to come back and sit, as long as you recognize the facts. Our coalition has not made up any of the things that I'm talking about or alluding to you right now. Our coalition bases this on fact that's been researched, FOIA, email exchanges, text messages, even audible whistleblower recordings that we have. We have all of that information available, and nobody is really interested in it because they want to do something else with the land. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Juarez, and thank you for all that you've been doing with your fellow veterans. I now would like to recognize Mr. Ham. Mr. Ham?
Hello. Hi.
There
Thank
you
you. Thank you for having me today. And I'm going to focus I agree so much with the previous veterans and the ones that will still speak. There's so many issues on this land going back over 100 years, and a lot of things to talk about. But I'm going to share a little bit of my story and what I'd like to focus on today. I'm an Army veteran. I served from 2007 to 2017. A combat deployment to Afghanistan and over a dozen humanitarian missions across the Pacific. I was a combat videographer, and my mission in the military was to tell the soldier story. After getting out, I moved back to Los Angeles, this is where I was born and I was raised, and I used my GI Bill to go to USC and get my master's degree in film there. Quickly, I learned how difficult it was being a veteran in a civilian world. And it brought me a lot of battles. I struggled with work, my identity. I struggled with addiction. And at one point, I even loaded a gun and seriously considered ending my life. That journey took me to the West Los Angeles VA. I started receiving care there. And that's when I discovered the north side of the property, the forgotten side. veterans like Rob and Mike Dowling and Jeffrey and David and all these amazing veterans started to give me tours and show me what was going on. And this was around the same time that Rob saw what a wasteland it was up there. And I'm so thankful for all the progress that's been happening there since. And I was shocked with the misuse of the land, the bureaucracy, the neglect. And I think more than anything, what discouraged me was how few people in Los Angeles even knew anything about this. Made me feel isolated and alone. And I found a lot of comfort in knowing that the space here was shared by veterans, not just my fellow veterans, but veterans that went back all the way back to the beginning of this country, of this state, and the Civil War. So I began documenting it. One of the films we made was called Restoring the Soldier's Home, and that tells the story of the history and the gradual collapse, including its beautiful historical buildings, those 5 original buildings that are on the property, from the governor's mansion to the little trolley station. I followed the lawsuits and the grassroots efforts and met countless people raising their voices to fight for what's right, like those who have been here right now. And the part of the home that I've become most passionate about, though, is the Wadsworth Chapel. That chapel was built in the late 1800s, early 1900s by both Union and Confederate veterans together. It stands as a rare physical symbol of healing and unity, and yet it's been abandoned. It's been sitting there since the 1970s after an earthquake left it unusable for 50 years. Nonprofits like the 1887 Fund have tried to raise funds, but the cost is overwhelming for citizens alone. This chapel matters. It sits at the very front of the home, right on Wilshire Boulevard, one of the busiest streets in all of Los Angeles. And as it stands now, it is a national shame, an embarrassment to those who served and to the country we love and we fought for. You could just go and see it. It's sad, but if it's restored, it could become a beacon of light for veteran healing, spiritual wellness, and public awareness. Veterans want this, and we need this. The plans are drawn. So much of the work has already been done. The experts are ready, and there's already some funding in place. What is missing is this final commitment from the VA, which I'm sad that they're not here, from the state of California, and from those in power to help us finish the job. This chapel is our chance to turn a neglected landmark into a lasting legacy for future generations. This is a moment in time we must not let pass as the 2028 Olympics approach. We have an opportunity to show the world how much we really care about those who served. And let me add, this is this symbol that stands at the forefront, and it's supposed to be a-religious. I went and did a walk through it with a Buddhist leader, from a Catholic leader to an atheist to a Mormon, and we walked through the chapel together with masks because of all the asbestos and helmets in case something falls on top of us. And this is supposed to be a symbol of national healing. And it's right there at the beginning of the whole northern property. You have to see it before you get all the way to the end where we need to be housing our homeless veterans. This is a historic building, and we need to renovate it. And there's a process. It goes back. I could talk to you about all the different hangups in the bureaucracy, but this is a VA responsibility, in my opinion, and they need to finish the funding to do it. Let's restore the Wadsworth Chapel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ham. I'd now like to call on Ms. Subtle. Ms. Subtle, please, go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Letia Subtle, and I'm a retired combat veteran. When I was getting out of the military, I was actually put in TDRL, which is Temporary Disability Retirement List, which a lot of people were not familiar with. And at the same time, I was going through a divorce, which I slowly learned that the family court doesn't identify veterans like the criminal court does. So I had to write a bill proposal that veterans start being identified in that court, because what I was experiencing was that I was not able to get services because I was not on drugs and because I didn't have a criminal charge or conviction. The only policies and legislations were for veterans that were on drugs or had a mental health problem or had been incarcerated. So to get assistance from the Veterans Treatment Court, you have to have a criminal charge and have a substance abuse problem or a mental health. I didn't have any of that. So nothing was available to me. So for years, I reached out. I spent my entire thrift savings plan with the fees associated with the family court because they count VA disability compensation as income. So in the initial bill proposal that I wrote to start identifying veterans, it also included exempting VA disability compensation. Unfortunately, that portion was left out, but the law was finally, the bill was approved in 2022 by Governor Gavin Newsom, and the law to identify veterans in family court, it went into effect in January 2024. Still, there was an issue with this VA disability compensation being counted. The fees that are associated with family court are enormous. I mean, you have to pay thousands of dollars up front for everything, $10,000 for this, $5,000 for that. And still until this day, they count VA disability compensation, which disqualifies you from getting a waiver, a fee waiver. So you would have to pay the full price for a court reporter. And the court reporter is needed to document what's happening in the court. And if you don't have a court reporter, then if there's something that went wrong, you can't do an appeal. So it's just some injustice going on, but it's a reality of what's going on. And it's also a reality of just various things that veterans have to pay for. A lot of people think veterans, well, they're getting VA disability compensation. They should have an income or they shouldn't be homeless, but they don't consider all the other things that you have to pay for where they're counting VA disability compensation. So I'm hearing a lot of people talk about the law that was recently passed to exempt it when applying for HUD-VASH. However, that's not all the way, it wasn't implemented correctly because it is still counted. When you apply for HUD-VASH, now they don't count it in the beginning, but they count it after you apply, which still ends up hurting some veterans. And then what happens is the landlord doesn't calculate it against your current rent, they calculate it against the market value, which is extremely high for this area. So for example, if your rent is currently $1,200, once they get that approved packet from HUD-VASH, they calculate it to $2,500, the market value, which then makes your rent higher than what it was before you apply for HUD-VASH. So there's still a lot of veterans that are not able to use HUD-VASH because they're counting the VA compensation after you apply. So it's true that they don't count it before, but they count it after, which is still a problem. So that's one of the issues. And I have written bill proposals for that as well. To talk about the homelessness and the soldiers' home, the problem with the order that was done by Judge Carter, it wasn't presented in the news as it read. Like if you read the entire thing, which is over 100 and some pages, starting at page 114, it talks about pausing permanent housing for 6 years. That wasn't in any article in LA Times or on the news. It just talked about, Judge Carter said the leases were illegal and there'll be housing built. But it wasn't highlighted that the housing wouldn't be built for 6 years. And then also it appoints a court monitor that, and this person has a lot of power to adjust the number of units being built. We don't know who that court monitor is and how much power they have. It also listed that within 18 months, there will be temporary sheds, but with toilets this time, because the current sheds, there's no toilets, there's no showers. They have to walk outside to use the restroom and to use the shower. So in 18 months from now, Judge Carter orders temporary sheds that have a toilet this time, but that's still not sufficient. And then also within 18 months, there will be a town center will be developed. So that's problematic. Like, why do you have to wait 6 years for permanent housing and only 18 months for a town center? The veterans should get housing first, and all this other stuff can come later. It should be prioritizing housing. Also, there were some expert witnesses during that hearing, which we don't know who made them expert witnesses. They weren't veteran advocates. They seemed more of advocates for retail spaces, and not like, no veteran asked for these specific people to be expert witnesses. And like everyone else said, they first acknowledged the illegal leases back in 2013. This is now 2025, and we're still dealing with illegal leases on the property. So what we want is just for veterans to be housed now. There's over 3,400 veterans homeless in California, or in LA, 11,000 in the state of California. So it's just sad that this back and forth has been going on for years. And like I said, there's more issues than veterans doing drugs or having a mental problem. There's other agencies and offices that are counting VA compensation and just taking it. Nobody is considering one thing or the other. They just expect this VA compensation to cover everything. And it just doesn't. It doesn't cover everything. Another thing I wanted to bring up is domestic violence. There's veterans that are experiencing domestic violence, and there's a waiting list to rehouse them or move them to a safer area. This list goes out for a year, and nobody, who's monitoring this list? Why is this people on the waiting list for over a year? And they just get away with saying, oh, you're still on the waiting list. And either there's no funding or you're on the waiting list. There's no oversight on what's happening with that while, women or men are left in harmful situations. I think that's all I have for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Subtle, for all the work you've been doing on this. Thank you so much. Mr. Garcia. There you are. Thank you, Ms. Garcia.
Hello, my name is Diego Garcia. I am first and foremost, I'm a West Side native. What that means is that I've been in the West Side my whole life. I grew up actually in the Culver City projects, Ms. Lourdes Castro Ramirez. Housing Authority was my manager, was my landlord for 18 years of my life until I went and joined the Marine Corps. I am also probably one of the first veterans to join the Marine Corps after 9/11. I can say that because I was at MEPS when the planes hit. I was standing in a room similar to this, a few chairs away from signing my final contract when someone walks into the room, turns on a big screen, and the Twin Towers are on fire. I had no idea what the Twin Towers were, let alone knew what was going on. I should have gone to boot camp on September 11th, but Bush shut everything down. So we had to wait one day, and I had a whole 24 hours to really think about my life choices, and whether or not I wanted to go to the Marines or not. My family tried everything they could to prevent me from going, but as an immigrant, as someone who was allowed to stay in this country, I had a debt to this country. And I wasn't going to walk away when my country needed me the most, as we were being attacked and I was signed up as a Marine. A few years later, in 2003, around March time, when Bush said go, when the war started, I was already in a trench about 6 miles away from the border, getting ready to invade. As a combat engineer, we needed to go through and clear a path for the rest of the military to come through and conduct their invasion. Come 2005, it was time for me to get out. Try to stay in, didn't work out for me. I got out, moved back home to Marine Del Rey. And very shortly after I moved back home, I realized I wasn't the same and I needed some help. I went to the West LA VA, because that's my VA. And it was sad that in 2005, they weren't really equipped to help me. I was fully employed. I had a job lined up before I even got out the Marine Corps. One day I was wearing camis. The next day I was looking like this, right? There was no transition for me. So very quickly, Found out my mind wouldn't stop, couldn't sleep. Anxiety was through the roof. Depression was through the floor. Intrusive thoughts everywhere. I went to the VA. The VA, all they could tell me is like, well, you know, you got to come to our program on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays from 10 to 1 p.m. And I was like, well, I work full time and I can't miss my job. I'll end up homeless. Well, they're like, well, do you want to get better or do you want to work? I was like, well, I don't want to be homeless, so I'm going to work. Left the VA. I struggled. 2010, 2011, went back to the VA because I just, you know, wasn't able to cope. This time around, the VA just pumped me full of medicines, man. They just pumped me full of drugs. I'm talking about 3 months worth of lorazepam. For those of you that don't know what lorazepam is, it's Xanax. They're giving me 90 pills of Xanax every time I show up. They're like, hey, that's good for your anxiety, right? I went from taking half a pill to downing 4 pills, and my anxiety was still the roof. Realized that was a problem. Stopped the drugs, went away. Struggled again. Struggled. Went back to the VA again, this time in 2016. And I'm happy to say I'm still going to the VA, still seeking treatment. And this time around, I'm getting much better treatment. The VA has kind of changed a whole lot, right? So while I was struggling, I maintained employment. I was a risk management consultant for a very large, great workers' comp insurance company. And during that time, I got to visit many workplaces. I got to teach workplaces how to run a safe employment. I got to learn how businesses ran. And during all that and driving around all over Los Angeles and Ventura and Irvine, I noticed the homelessness issue just blowing up. You know, noticed veteran homelessness issue blowing up. Regular Angelinos ending up in the street. I'm seeing just trash all over the place. My beautiful city's just going down the drain. And with anxiety, your mind doesn't stop. It just kind of keeps going, right? So I had to find something productive to kind of think about. I was like, oh man, well, how could I solve this homelessness and trash problem? And you know, I got a wild idea to start a nonprofit called Semper Utilis. It's a Latin for always useful. And the Marine Corps motto is Semper Fidelis, always faithful. So I started a nonprofit, always useful, where I take donated recycling and I use the proceeds from the donated recycling, donated from VFWs, American Legions, businesses all around the city. I take the donated recycling, I recycle it, and then I put on events for the veterans homelessness, for the homeless veterans, excuse me. I got here because I turned on the news one day on NPR and I saw Rob Reynolds' face in front of a bunch of tents full with American flags, and I learned about Veterans Row. And I was disgusted and at the same time inspired. I started my nonprofit in 2018. Veterans Row started in 2020. I had a little bit of money from recycling. I bought a pallet of water, went down to Veterans Row, and we started going tent to tent, passing out the waters and hygiene kits. That was in September of 2000. So right when COVID was happening. I learned about what was going on with Veterans Row, why the veterans were out in the street. I started learning about all the illegal leases through Francisco, through Dave, through Rob. And man, I looked at my own story. I looked at what happened with my buddies. I have one friend that hung himself, another one that shot himself in the head, another one that overdosed. These are Marine Corps buddies, another one that overdosed after his dad kicked him out of the house. So I couldn't stop thinking, but like, man, what would all my buddies, how would they be alive if they knew that there was 388 acres of beautiful, lush green space in sunny Southern California? Maybe they wouldn't have stayed in Illinois. Maybe they would have came down and received a little bit of treatment, right? Maybe they'd still be alive. And then I find out that, well, wow, once upon a time, that land was close to 1,000 acres. We had almost 1,000 acres with beachfront property for veterans to come and rehabilitate in their home amongst other veterans. Something that I think it escapes many people is that, man, it's tough wearing a camis one day and then the next day jumping into this monkey suit. You know, we don't have any kind of any kind of decompression period. We don't have anyone to teach us how to be a civilian again. I went from being a lover to now I had to go be a killer in the Marine Corps. No one taught me how to reshift back into being a civilian. I started being a safety guy, risk management. I was a Marine. I was blowing things up. No one showed me, how to transition back nice and smoothly. I had to struggle. I had to fall down on my face. I had to pick myself up. I had to fall down on my face again and struggle until I was able to have a decent life for myself. Something that was able to make that happen was being around my comrades, was being around other veterans, learning from their struggles, learning what they're doing to get better, joining the VFW, joining the Legion, going to the post, learning from their experiences. This is why we need that property as a home. This is why we need that Veterans Warrior Center. So we could come there and we could learn from each other. We could teach each other. We could correct each other. There's things that I could tell him that he won't judge me for. There's things I could tell him he's not going to judge me for. But if I share it with any other civilian, man, I'm X'd out. I'm marked out, But we veterans, we know each other. And that's why we need a home. So we could come home, we could decompress, we could regain our life, our strength, learn how to be a civilian again, and go out and be a productive member of society. Because it's tough trying to be productive when you got to self-medicate and when you can't sleep and when you can't digest a meal and when you can't think straight. It is really tough. I'm glad we're having this roundtable, but I am disappointed to kind of hear the same story all the time. We want to, but there's no money. That's to me, when there's a will, there's a way. There's a lot of money out there. We print our own money for one. We bailed out Wall Street, so I mean we could print out a couple million to bail out homeless veterans, I think. We used to have 1,000 acres. Now we're down to 388 acres. A lot of those acres disappeared. UCLA has a big chunk of it. CNH tract, maybe they'd like to compensate us for some of the land they took. They dumped a lot of medical waste on our VA property, and now we can't use that land because there's medical waste in the ground. Maybe they would like to compensate to clean up that waste. They've been paying under market rents. UCLA, Brentwood, they've all been paying under market rents. Maybe we need to go back and audit all those years and have them pay the right market rent for all those years. There's a couple $100 million right there. Brentwood, UCLA, UC Regents, man, they're very powerful, very rich institutions. They don't want to maybe donate a little bit more to do right, perhaps that they've been doing us wrong for so many years. If there's a will, there's a way. And for us to say, hey, well, the money's not there. Well, the printer's back in Washington. We could just press go, So if there's really a will, we can make this happen. And I guess I'm here to ensure that happens, to put my 2 cents in, because it's been hundreds and hundreds of years, and it's every single party that's been doing us wrong. And if we veterans don't stand up, if we don't grab this bull by the horns, if we don't ensure this happens right this time around, no one else is going to do it for us. And that's proven track record. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Diego, I haven't said that there's no money. I need to know how much money to ask for. And, right? Well, there's a figure that comes out of the president's executive order, which is like, Brad, you said it was like $530 million. The entire MilCon VA appropriation is, what'd you say? It was like 1.3,
1.4 billion for all construction.
For all construction across the United States. So I have a hard time believing that I can reconcile what's in the president's executive order versus what Congress is actually going to appropriate, what they've already actually put into the MilCon VA budget, which has passed this year, right? Go ahead.
It was actually 1.75 billion in the House bill, but again, that's for hospital and clinic construction, cemeteries, and housing nationwide.
This is why I wanted my colleagues to be here, because there's big promises being made, and for us to generate the political commitment, bipartisan, to get an appropriations bill done, and the appropriations bills are due at the end of September. The fiscal year is at the end of September. There's a whole heck of a lot of work to be done to even get an appropriations bill, and I'm skeptical we'll get one done. I think it's going to be a continuing resolution. I'm throwing all these words out. I don't mean to be doing that to you, but the bottom line I think could be expressed: the $530 million versus the $1.75 billion that is in the actual appropriations bill, I don't see how LA gets close to like 1/3 of that entire number that's for the whole nation.
Well, this is a nation's home. It's not LA's home.
I
Right?
get
So
it.
Couldn't some of those funds kind of be going
I-
towards a nation's home?
I get the justification, the reason. I'm just saying that I've got 500, I have 435 colleagues that represent the other parts of the country that have veterans priorities in their own districts, right? And I get that we're saying this is a home for our nation's veterans. I get that. And I'm wanting to fight for it. But I also need the help of knowing the details and the nitty gritty of this plan they're putting together. They're going to present to the president next week, right? I got some people concerned over here about the town center. We need more details about the town center, whether that's coming along together. I mean, there's plenty of things that where we're going to need to get our heads together around it. And I'm concerned. We've taken a long time to get to where we are now, and the frustration that's been building over these past years. I was the person that managed the original enhanced leases back in 2015, 2016. So that the long-term leases that went up to out to bid for the project now, that's sort of we're kind of in the middle of it right now of building stuff. But so anyway, just know I'm willing to ask for the money. I need to know how much and how much to fight for. So I'm going to,
Congressman,
Mr. Juarez, go ahead.
take a bio break.
A bio break. People are welcome. People are welcome to come and go.
Okay.
So go ahead, sir.
I'm old and my bladder doesn't hold.
Well, I can relate to what you're going through. I can tell you. I've been watching how much water I drank. So, Mr. Canis, where are you? Mr. Canis, go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Canis, and I'm a veteran who has been living at the VA for the last 4 years. I was there when the tents were up on San Vicente, and now I currently live in one of the step-up buildings. These units lack basic amenities like ovens. We have no access to ovens anywhere in our building. And Step Up provides zero support when it comes to preventing evictions. We've had about 13 evictions in one day. Rob Reynolds and myself had to go to court a few times to try to prevent these evictions from happening. Veterans are living in squalor right now, not in supporting housing. They're going hungry and they live in apartments next to Bel Air. Imagine that, people. There's no case management from Step Up, and we can see this as a result from the overdoses that we have daily. So we are consistently having people die on that campus. Mr. Juan Mack's neighbor, Danny, recently just passed away from an overdose. A year before that, I found him also overdosed on the ground. Robert Reynolds had to do CPR on him for 30 minutes to revive him. Shortly after that, Jeffrey Powers and my best friend, Derek Featherston, passed away from an overdose. We have no help with service connections. We cannot access any of our educational or vocational benefits. We're being told that if we go back to school, we are going to be evicted from the apartments. We are also told that if we go back to work and make too much money, that we will be evicted from the apartments. Right now, I am facing eviction because I cannot afford the 30% of my rent, even though the county pays Step Up $2,900 a month for my 400 square foot apartment. I'm still being evicted. I have no service connection, even though I was in the combat track at the Dom Auxiliary for 8 months. I was an inpatient. Meanwhile, the building I live in is falling apart. There's no preservation of the building. There's no accountability. There's no dignity for the veterans that live there. Step Up was recently taken over by the John Stewart Company, but they kept the staff the same. I live in the same hallway as the property manager for John Stewart, where we have a drug den and a tiny brothel operating in the hallway. We have zero support from the VA. There's no accountability. And as a veteran that's lived there for 4 years, I can promise you there's no benefits to veterans from UCLA or the Brentwood School being there. Okay, if anybody wants to know what's going on the campus, please go to YouTube and Google or YouTube The Promised Land. highlights of veterans housing. It's a documentary about the VA campus and the veterans that live there. You can also go to Mr. Checkpoint on YouTube and Instagram and see how the police and the VA treat us. In closing, I just want to have a moment of silence for Adam. Adam was a veteran that also lived on Vets Row. He just got stabbed at Whole Foods a week ago. Right before he got stabbed, he reached out to Rob Reynolds for help, trying to get back into housing because he lost his apartment. So in closing, I just want to do this in closing for Adam. Please join me for a moment of silence. Thank you.
Okay, please join us in a moment of silence for Adam. Thank you, Mr. Canis, for your testimony.
Thank you, sir.
Let me, and it was important for us to hear the reality about security and the support services. I differ somewhat from what another veteran said about we don't need no VASH or whatever, but the housing part plus the supportive services are really important. I'm concerned about how the town center and how that's going to work. What kind of long-term obligations and how if there are any veterans that are housed in that area, how it's going to affect their ability to kind of live in that area given the commotion and the noise. I mean, there's all these questions about the details of this development, but adequate funding for the supportive services. The veterans are going to need that. And the last thing that we want is a development that brings in all these veterans, but we haven't really thought through how these services are going to be provided in a sustainable way, right? And the last thing we want is a concentration of veterans that have a lot of challenges, all concentrated in one area next to another neighborhood that is going to be just freaking out if this place becomes a kind of an unsafe area, right? So it's going to take careful planning and it's going to take resources to make sure that we're able to serve veterans and make this a national home that we can be proud of, right? So with that, I want to recognize our last veteran speaker, and that's Mr. Mack. Where's Mr. Mack? Mr. Mack, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. My name is Juan Mack, veteran California and Mississippi National Guard, as well as the United States Active Duty Army. I heard a lot of stuff going on. I came here today. Rob brought this up to me earlier in the month. Still excited about, possibly sharing, what I felt and what I seen and things I thought could make things better. But sitting here and listening, and I talked to Rob a lot. Jesus, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of work to do. You just said something right now to Robert Canis. You told him, you said that we need to make sure that it's safe. That's a big priority right now. And I think a lot of some of the failed transparency with the VA right now, I think that has a lot to do with it. Because it's very unsafe. It's very extremely unsafe. I've been there since 2023, December 28th, right? December 28th in my same apartment. And I guarantee you, I've seen 13 people die in that building. And none of them have died of natural causes. All of them have died of OD. Didn't know you were getting evicted, Robert. And it's sad because I was just about to start trying to get somebody to come in and test the building because I lived in an apartment before. I had a dog. She always would slide across the floor, and I thought it was really funny. I was like, hey, look at Storm. But it turned out that that was mold. And You know my dog now, Dodie, she's doing the same thing in my apartment. It's mold in that apartment. And it's mold in those, I know it's gonna be mold in those 3 because they're old apartments and they were just refurbished. And you want to evict somebody for living there. The guy's probably sick. So anyway, back to what I was saying, as far as the people, UCLA, Brentwood School renting and, leasing property. I think we need some good record keeper, bookkeepers. You need some people to go up in there with some good mathematical wisdoms, go up in there, go back in those books and see how can we, possibly shift the blame back, some accounts, some finances back towards your school, UCLA and Brentwood. See how they've been, getting away with that. Where's the money been going? I mean, it's just taking way too much time for something the gentleman has said it's already written in the deeds. Wow, that's really big right there. You just wrote in the deeds and we can't do anything about it. That's weird, really weird. So we need to see why can't we do something about it if it's written in the deed? To me, it just sounds like something's being hidden. As far as the safety and security in the buildings there, my initial thing that I was going to come here and talk about is you're talking about the shopping center that you're talking about putting there. It's good. Personally, I don't think that the facility itself is ready for that because I think that it's a great thing to have housing. I came out of surgery, open heart surgery. I really had lost everything. I'm a truck driver. Man, I lost everything. I had the tiny homes. The VA was really good. They didn't send me to the streets. They sent me there. I'd never heard of it, which is crazy. But they sent me there and I did good. I got my guard card, got a job at the VA as a janitor. Then I went to school, recently graduated, and currently waiting on, just did all my little drug tests, trying to get a job right now with a SFV to be peer support specialist. But those are the things that the veterans need to be doing. And that's only because my head was on right. Robert, he was in tiny homes when I came. I think he was already there. Thing is that a lot of people are not mentally ready to have a place. That's the thing. That's one thing to look at. Now that's outside of talking about what needs to be happening as far as getting the veteran housing. Hey, it's great to get these guys housing. But what I see is that we're getting a lot of people housing that don't need the housing right now because they're not ready. They need some type of medical help. They need counseling. They need to get this just to bring someone off the street that's doing something here and you give him a house and he just does it more there. And like he says, you have the VA police, they come in. I mean, how long did it take him to do bone?
Yeah.
Yeah, it took this guy, man. I mean, this guy go to jail, man, he have this much drugs. It's right back there 2 days later. He's got this much drugs again. He goes to jail in the back. He goes to jail in the front. He goes to jail from beating up the lady. And right now, he's in an apartment in my building. And the owner of the apartment is in a program, and he's in there with the guy's girlfriend. And he's got a house or property, but he's trying to convince the girl to go back out there. So, I mean, these are things that happens at the facility. The older people, talk about transportation a little bit, because it's up on the hill, the north side. That's where they started the housing at. The older guys that are in wheelchairs, that are in walkers, like when I came there, I was on a walker. But I was lucky I was down on the end down there, and I got well down there. So by the time I went up top, I had a motorbike. I was able to get around a little bit. But some of these guys, I pick them up quite a bit. I see some of the older guys, hey, you need a ride? Excuse me. These guys can't make it up that hill. They can't push those carts up the hill. We do have a bus. They have that thing from Brentwood School, the little van. And the thing about that is some of those people have electric chairs. So the driver is not going to get out and put an electric chair in that bus. But we have buses at the VA that have lifts, that has lifts on them. But you have to have a medical appointment to get on that bus. But those people need to get from on that hill down to the, to Wilshire, to make it to Ralph's, to make it to Target down this way, maybe the Social Security building. Hey, just maybe going to the beach, just do something. They need transportation off the hill. Otherwise, they're stuck. They put them there and they throw them there and they're there. Then you have people that get mail and your UPS mail, UPS still hasn't gotten the address right. And when they do get it right, there's only one guard in the building. So this guard, he goes out, he does a little rover, which he's supposed to do. But there should always be two guards. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I was outside with the neighbor, a friend of ours, with Mark. And he was, we saw the EMS out there. They was out there for a while. Well, I didn't think much of it. So I just thought after a while, I said, hey, you guys trying to get in? And say, yeah. I said, hey, Mark, go let them in. Well, guess what? You got a veteran in there. It's dying. EMS can't get in. Guess who else can't get in? VA police can't get in. You need a security guard at those doors 24 hours a day. You need two guards, not one. You need one to rover, one to watch. Because I have to come way down here to get my medicine off a Temple, because UPS has tried to bring me my medication and it has to be signed for. So they're not going to put this, they're not going to just leave it there at the door or anything like that. But they can't get into the building. Then when you house the people at the buildings, you have some guys that are really, really sick, some guys that can't walk, guys have different type of stuff. And I'll just mention one. I'll just say it like this. What is it? Water. We just say water on them. One thing is called gout. Some of the guys have that. They swell up really bad. Man, they barely moving. They cannot make it up and down the stairs. Well, all the doors, you have this fob, like I have right here. And see, when there's no internet, none of the doors work. So I park my vehicle in the back. And so there are times that I have to walk all the way around, which is as well going up the hill. And then I got to go up the hill. And then I got to walk up the stairs, which I can do it. But the guys that can't do it, that's a long walk for somebody who's barely moving. You need a key to get into that building. You got to have a key. These things are no good because when internet goes down, they don't work. And there are times, gentleman here can tell you, he stays in my building, that these doors are down, every last one of them, and there's only one door that works. Only one door that works. So now you have veterans here that they need to, they may have a situation where EMS is being called. They need to get to this guy quick, because what's that stuff that they give you? They give you Narcan. Maybe I've given this guy a couple Narcans because they only give you one, and I keep them just in case. I've never had to use them, but I keep them because they try to tell you how to use them. It's pretty simple. Put it in his nose and squeeze it. Hope he lives. But this guy doesn't, say he doesn't live. EMS is there, and I'm still here in the room, and I'm on the phone, and here's the operator telling me, well, Mr. Mack, you give him a little mouth to mouth, push him down a little bit. I know CPR, but the next guy may don't. But EMS is stuck outside. They can't get in. And with the mail, with visitors, some of those people are really, really old. You need a thing like where I've been to some of the military housing, some of the VA housing, where you put a code in the door and they can see you, the people, and they can buzz you in. These things right here, this is not sufficient for that facility. One of the last things I want to talk about, I think it's Miss Subtle over there. She was talking about women and domestic violence. I'm a victim of domestic violence. Guys may find that funny, unbelievable, but I am. But I helped a family out here. I think Rob helped me out. I had to call him. He was at his mom's house in Boston. Well, there was a family come there, a young lady. She had two daughters, had just got deported from Norway, was it, Rob? I believe, Norway. And I just happened to be going to my doctor's appointment. Well, I'd come out and everyone was going home, and they left the lady there with her two daughters, and here she is with all these bags. And I had that another lady stay at my house for a couple of days because she had been over there at the same building, just got out the Navy, but she wasn't in the computer. She had nowhere to go. So I let her stay there until she got into the computer. And I was bringing her back over there. I had gotten her a job and everything at McDonald's with one of the ladies that work at the VA. I knew there's also a supervisor outside and got her a job at McDonald's. And the young lady asked me, she says, "Hey, what's those bags?" I just kind of, inadvertently, "Hey, yeah, they're getting out the hospital, I guess." But then when I got there, I was like, "Well, that's a lot of getting out the hospital. That's a lot of bags." Well, a younger girl and the mother was inside, and the older daughter was outside watching the bags. Well, I pushed out, ran back to 402. Over there is where they do the HPAC to help the people get housing. And they had been over there all day and they wasn't able to help. So I took them to what you were calling the tiny homes. They don't take children. Then I took them to the SFV trailer where they couldn't help them and everything's closed. So I'm in a situation. Do I leave this young lady right here that seems extremely intelligent, which she is, very educated, nice kids? Do I let this lady stay on the streets all night, or do I just take the few little dollars I have and get her a room? And which is what I did in the end, got her a room. Next day I bring her back. She gives the application. I don't know what this guy, Byron was his name, Byron. I don't know what this guy did with the lady's paperwork, but he went to sleep, didn't he? And didn't get her a place again for the second day. So I was stuck trying to get her a room. The point I'm making is that women have nothing, and it's not just the VA guys, it's just Southern California that I know of. They don't have anything for women, for housing. Those ladies, that lady and her daughters, they needed a home. Well, Rob was able to call somebody back this way, and I was able to get that second day motel for him. And now it's Friday, and Rob managed to get him a place, and I was able to drive him way up to Lancaster, which is really far out. And she gave me a call here, I think last night. She's in some kind of place. It's a single or something. But the thing is that with the type skill that she has, because she works with the government, Lancaster doesn't have a lot to offer. In order to get off that hill up there, you got to catch a bus. If you don't have a car, for her and her daughter, she's going to pay over $120 just for a round trip, because there's only one way to come, either on that charter bus or the train. There's no metro. And so now, and the daughter, one daughter is, what do you call it, homeschool. But the older daughter, she is college and can work a little bit. There's really nothing there for mom or that daughter.
Mr. Matt, just clear something. This woman is a veteran.
Yeah, she's a veteran.
But woman veteran with a daughter.
Air Force,
And
two
they-
daughters.
And they couldn't accommodate.
They
the
couldn't
kids.
accommodate them.
The kids. So there's not a living situation there that currently would accommodate a
There's
woman veteran with
nothing
children.
that accommodate a woman with children or a man. We have a man staying in my building with a son.
The blind guy?
Oh yeah. They put him out too. I let him stay at my house for about 2 weeks. So I've helped a lot of people there that they wouldn't help. This guy's totally blind, an Army veteran.
Well, this brings up a couple of things in my mind. It's the total amount of HUD-VASH vouchers that we do have. There may be other parts of the county in the area where there is appropriate housing available, or whether there's other types of plans that are in development. So we also have to bear in mind that not all veterans are going to be, this is not necessarily an appropriate place for all veterans, that we also have other types of elements around. And I see Ms. Castro Ramirez sort of nodding her head, that we don't allocate every single voucher or project-based voucher to this particular development, that we're going to need to kind of keep the bigger picture in mind as well.
Right.
Or we may have to build stuff. So, look, it's the details of this plan that heretofore has not been shared, and my staff hasn't been able to review it, and so there's a lot of other types of. So, are you finished, sir, or do you? I don't want to cut you off.
A couple more things.
Well, okay, go ahead.
So Yeah, it's not my first time being homeless. So, but us guys, we can go down there. We can get a place right now. I've never had a problem getting a home with the VA. But women need somewhere, and then they have their eating thing. They have a disease, and I forget what it's called. It's not a disease; it's just a sickness. But they can't eat certain foods.
Uh-huh.
So I was forced to get them food for a couple of days too, because they didn't have that help. And so the welfare, she was saying that she just told me this last night. Didn't give her food stamps, and they won't give them for 30 days. And she did kind of ask me to mention that maybe there could be something that would be helpful. You know, of course, in the places where we stay, we have what you call a food hub, and we could get food. But for someone who just going into temporary housing, it's, you know, they don't have that available. Now, I know they do have special diets over at the tiny homes because I had to have one when I got out the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where she's at up there in Lancaster, I don't know about that because they actually bring the food there. I think that was about the thing that I could. I think that's actually about all I had as far as the security, the safety. Outside of that, I do want to say, and I'm not here to bash the VA. And, you know, that's not my thing because I'm very thankful for the help I've received, and I'm sure others are too. But I am. So I'm saying that there's just things because it's hard for anybody in here because what's going on at the VA right now, it wasn't happening. And it's only what, 10, maybe 11 years old in the making, and it's going to take time to perfect it.
Yes. So, Mr. Mack, I want to thank you. You did a real good job of painting a picture of what some of our veterans who are less mobile, the ones with gout, what happens when the fob system goes down. You gave me a picture of the hill. My staff will be there on site tomorrow. Hopefully they'll get a chance to actually see in person what you're talking about. But I got a sense, you did this without a visual. You described it all in words. So I want to thank you for that. That was very skillful what you did. And the whole thing with the delivery of medications, how that doesn't go particularly well. And veterans need medications. They're especially the older ones. Well, all of us at times will need that support. And then it sounds like the living situation there doesn't facilitate that. So this is all down into the deeds and all into the weeds and the details, and it's going to give us an indication of what else do we need to make sure that veterans are supported appropriately and adequately. And this testimony was very, very valuable. So thank you. And I'd like to move on to the next point. So let's give a hand to all of our veteran testifiers today. You are the reason why we want this National Veterans Home and why we want to shake up the system and get this done. So I want to thank all of you from beginning to last for your testimony. Now I want to turn what you said, the inadequacies that you present, the problems with the safety, the problems with the support, the gaps in our ability to fill the needs of our veterans. And I'd like to now turn to action, how we turn your comments into action. And I'd like to introduce the rest of our roundtable participants who are here. They are veteran service organization leaders and members and housing advocates. We're lucky to be joined by some of the smartest minds in housing policy. Some have come all the way from Washington, D.C. to help us solve the problems right here in LA. Not that all the smart people are in Washington, but that we have people from all over who go to Washington who have a lot of experience. I understand that even one person here invented the HUD-VASH voucher, for example, and got that actually put into law. So I want to introduce who they are. So first we have Anne Olivia, from the National Alliance to End Homelessness. Catherine Monet, the National Coalition for Homeless Veterans. Jim Zenner, the LA County Department of Military and Veterans Affairs. Molly, is it Reisman or Reisman? Reisman. Molly Reisman from County of Los Angeles. Emilio Salas, Los Angeles County Development Authority. Deb Burkhart, the National Equity Fund. Rob Begland, the former chair of the Veterans Community Oversight and Engagement Board, the famed VCOEB. Anthony Ullman, Vets Advocacy. I'm really especially honored to have here Tom Burke of the Vietnam Veterans of America, the new national commander. Welcome, Commander, for being here today. And the executive director of Vietnam Veterans of America, James McCormick. Mr. McCormick, thank you for being here. You go ahead and give him a hand too. That's great. Raul Barragan, Veterans of Foreign Wars, the VFW. Veterans of Foreign Wars, we got to give them a hand. Manny Vega, the American Legion. American Legion. Joel Herrera, the American GI Forum. Joel, great to see you here. Steve Peck, everyone knows Steve, the West LA Veterans Collective. Steve, welcome. So I want to welcome you all. While I hope that we're all here for an open dialogue amongst our participants, I'm going to periodically chime in with discussion topics to keep our conversation productive. So if I may want to shift topics, move us on to another topic, that's my role. If anyone at the table would like to be recognized to make a comment about a particular topic, please do so by taking your name card and turning it up like this. My staff will take note. Once you're recognized, you can reset your nameplate to its normal position. I'd like to start by turning to Rob Begland. Mr. Begland, you served as the chair of the VCOEB, and during your tenure at the board, you made a series of recommendations to VA regarding various aspects of redevelopment of West LA that fell on deaf ears. Earlier this year, you wrote a letter to the House and Senate committees on Veterans Affairs requesting that we perform our oversight duty and convene hearings about the Soldiers' Home. I completely agree with you and have asked Chairman Boss to hold a hearing here in Los Angeles regarding implementation of the master plan in light of Judge Carter's ruling in Powers v. McDonough and the President's executive order. To get us started, Mr. Begland, can you please outline the most urgent aspects of redevelopment at the Soldiers' Home that warrant congressional oversight and legislative action? If you can take about 5 minutes to do that, sir, go ahead.
Thank you, Congressman Sakano. I'm grateful for the chance to at least bring people together, even if we can't get a congressional hearing. I think this group needs to ask 3 questions, and I'm going to preview them for you and offer my own take on them. The first question is, what duties do we owe to veterans? The second question is, what is the best mechanism for accomplishing those duties? And the third question is, who can be trusted to accomplish those duties? Okay. Now, on the first question of what duties do we have to veterans, I need to begin by explaining I served in the Army from 1989 to 1996. And my father commissioned me when he was still in his infantry uniform. So all I knew until I was 27 was a military way of life. So I want to emphasize some things that typically get lost on almost all American civilian audiences, public officials included. The first is, I believe our most general duty to veterans is to reintegrate them into society after their military service. It is an especially heightened duty in times of war. And as you all know, we have been at war a good bit over the last 20 years. The uncomfortable truth and it's not the heat in the room that you're about to feel the discomfort, is we have been a belligerent nation for 20 years. And I mean that in the neutral sense. I just mean a nation that has been at war. Now, I think Diego and Rob did this group the greatest service today by sharing their story about how merely returning from deployments or combat and becoming a civilian was itself a disorienting experience. I believe that's our highest duty to veterans, and I think that duty has to be met with what we do with this campus. I believe our second duty to veterans is to provide medical care for those who are wounded in their term of their service. I think the VA does a perfectly good job of that. You won't hear me quibble with that. I've been fortunate to not have to go to them for those services, but I think most of my veteran friends who have feel like they've done well on this campus. No complaints. And then I think there's this third duty to house homeless veterans. And it's a duty that arises here for unique reasons, meaning this land was acquired under unusual circumstances. But I think this group would be making a grave mistake to decide that meeting the duty to homeless veterans in Los Angeles is all that we're obligated to do as we redevelop this land. And I'll be blunt with you. I feel like the majority of the people only talk about that duty and they don't talk about the others. People much smarter than me who have studied homelessness on, for example, the VA side and then the county side, like Hardy Marston, have been telling us, we will not grow ourselves out of this problem. We cannot keep building permanent supportive housing as if it's the only solution. Prevention is essential. If that's all we will do, is we will make affordable housing developers money. They're not in this for purely pro bono reasons. They're in this because this is a business. So we should be deeply skeptical about the idea that permanent supportive housing at $600,000 a unit, whether it's new construction or adaptive reuse, is the correct standard. And while I disagree with many of the current administration's arguments, I welcome and I'm looking forward to seeing how the debate on PSH plays out. I'm a lawyer. I'm not an expert in this area, but I think we have to ask critical questions about whether or not building housing alone is enough. Second question I think the group has to ask themselves is, what's the best mechanism for accomplishing these duties? I think there's three aiming points, Congressman Takano. I think one is Judge Carter's order. It's under review by the Ninth Circuit. There's the president's executive order. And there's this document called the master plan. And I'm going to submit to the group, we should all be fighting like hell to make sure the master plan continues to be the map and the basis for discussion. This is a thorny public policy issue. This is not something that gets debated in the abstract. It gets debated by reducing ideas to paper and seeing how they hold up and forcing people to come up with very concrete plans. Judge Carter's order, as well-intentioned as he is, suffers from the problem that all judges and lawyers like myself face, which is we're brought a limited set of issues and we decide only what's in front of us. Judge Carter doesn't wrestle with vocational training, and he barely wrestles with the town center. All Judge Carter accomplishes is a notion of housing, which I again don't think he got right, but we can debate that. The president's executive order doesn't strike me as the right thing either. 6,000 homeless veterans from across the nation dumped into Los Angeles. It's a preposterous notion, and we know the administration is taking a hard run at housing first and permanent supportive housing. So I wouldn't expect this executive order to be about West LA campus. I think it's about larger issues, and I wouldn't trust the executive order to accomplish it. I think you're left with the master plan. And I think we have to go back to that document and work the process of updating the master plan. Who can you trust? The VA cannot be trusted in this planning process. They neglected this campus for decades, not years, not a decade, decades. The VA regarded this campus as of no usefulness beyond hosting a hospital. All the buildings on the North Campus were allowed to fall into a state of complete neglect. They never had a plan for restoring this campus. They were allowed to engage in illegal and sometimes corrupt land use agreements. They've been burned twice in lawsuits. In the face of continuing illegal conduct, they've still not taken action. They had an inspector general who told them that they were continuing to engage in illegal conduct in the last 10 years, and they didn't change their ways. So you can't look to the VA. A private developer who's been given the job of housing, I don't think you can trust him to do anything other than housing. They have a commercial motive to build as many housing units as they can get away with. And I don't say that pejoratively. I say that knowing that the board I was on told the agency that they had to do a demand estimate of the need for veteran housing in Los Angeles a year ago. And remarkably, the VA secretary agreed with that. It's not been done. And the reason it's not been done is because the VA doesn't want to have to settle on what's the correct number. And in the absence of the VA picking the correct number, I sure wouldn't allow a private developer to tell us what the correct number is. So that leaves us with Congress, as you could probably tell.
You're going to trust us.
So look, I think the positive news is when you take the long view of history, Congress has sometimes done well here. So when you go back to the 80s, Dianne Feinstein and Alan Cranston stepped in. They knew the agency couldn't be trusted, and they said, we're not going to let you dispose of this land under the Federal Surplus Land Act. And it was a period of congressional activism. We haven't had much since then. And I know we're among friends, and so I want to speak candidly. The 2016 Leasing Act by Congress was not original. It was something Congress was asked to do by the executive branch. They had this settlement, they had to implement it. So for those of you who haven't read my letter, I've laid out why I think Congress hasn't fulfilled that oversight role for the last 6 or 7 years. But I think this is the chance to resume that. And I think the things that we have to look to going forward is, what is the real level of housing need, empirically established? What is the progress on creating community on campus? I'm not talking about housing, but community, things like the Wadsworth Chapel. And then I think Congress has a role to play in offering guidance to the executive branch on vocational training. What can we do here to help veterans enjoy the dignity of work while still preserving their housing? Thank you.
Yes, if I could chime in for just a second.
Go ahead.
One thing to keep in mind in terms of how much housing do we need is that there are tens of thousands of homeless veterans across the country. And while we're not focused on the homeless veterans of St. Louis, I'd rather live on this campus in a nice, supportive housing than live on the streets of St. Louis. So we've got a lot of homeless veterans to take care of, and a limited amount of money to build the housing for them.
I'm seeing Steve Peck has his hand up, and then Mr. Barragan. This guy in the audience. His hand up. Yeah. So I'm going to call him Mr. Peck and then Mr. Barragan. Sir, what is your name?
Salvatore Grammatical.
Say your name again.
Sal, S-A-L.
Okay, I'll call you Sal. Okay, thank you, Sal. Well, you'll be third. Go ahead, Mr. Peck.
Thank you, Congressman. My name's Steve Peck. I'm a Vietnam combat veteran. I served with the Marine Corps in Vietnam in 69 and 70. Went and did something else for a number of years, and then joined Actually, I was an outreach worker at the West LA VA for a few years, which is where I learned what I know about homeless veterans. Then joined US Vets. It was LA Vets at the time. And in 2010 became CEO of that organization and was CEO up until this past January. During that period of time, we helped reduce the homeless population in America by 1/2. So I got half the job done. I was intent on getting every single homeless veteran off the street, but only got halfway there. When we were asked, US Vets as part of the principal development team of Century Housing and Thomas Saffron Associates, when we were asked to be part of this, I initially didn't want to do it because I knew it would be a nightmare. The VA is a bureaucracy like no other. I've been dealing with them for 30 years, which is how long I've been working for homeless veterans. And I figure this is a mission that is doomed to failure. But in fact, we have accomplished quite a lot. And as president of our organization, I have to be realistic, I have to be optimistic, and I have to be pragmatic. I have to know what is possible and fight like crazy to make that possible. But I have to realize the reality. So there have been a lot said over the past 7 years, and I've devoted every single day of the last 7 years to help build housing and provide services, most importantly. And the realities that we run up against are significant. I accept that. I would like to get it done tomorrow. I would like to get every homeless veteran off the street tomorrow. But there are realities that we deal with. The two other parts of partners in our principal development team, Century Housing and Thomas Saffron Associates, are two of the best affordable housing developers in the county, probably in the state. Century is a nonprofit. None of us are making money doing this. None of us. Thomas, one of the buildings is now operating at a deficit, but we're not closing the building. So when I hear we're doing it for the money, and based on my 30 years of experience getting homeless veterans off the street, I get a little insulted. So we are going to continue doing what we're doing. We're going to continue to address the barriers that prevent us from doing it faster. To this point, we have raised $1 billion. That's billion with a B. Philanthropically, we've raised $100 million. And that $100 million goes not only toward building the housing, but providing the services. And US Vets' reputation is based on its services, not on its housing. So we really rely on our housing partners to make this happen. But we, I would say, I would argue that we are one of the best service providers in the country, and that's where we've made our reputation. So the money we raise provides the services that are so important to these veterans. We are not the service provider for the entire campus. I wish we were. There are other providers there. And it is our job as the lead service provider to help lift them up. Tess Banco is here. She's our community development director. Her whole job is to build community. That's her entire job. So we understand what the needs are. Can we do it all today? No. Are we working like hell at it? Yes. And that's really what we can do. We will continue to do it. I signed an NDA, so I can't say anything I didn't know already a month ago. But we are in discussion, which is a good thing. I think they recognize that after 7 years, we have some expertise in this area. We are going to try to convince them to base it on the need, not just put out a number. Base it on the need. Let's build housing until those buildings go empty. I don't think anyone wants us to build more housing than we can fill. You build a building, and if there's no one in it, you go broke. So we have to be conscious of what we do. We want to build it to the right size, provide the right services, and bring the VA along with us. There is a very powerful partnership to be had if you combine the services of a nonprofit with the professional services of the VA. That's a powerful model that could help a lot of veterans, and we're going to do everything we can to accomplish that. Thank you.
So thank you, Mr. Peck, and I agree that the proximity to the VA hospital and is potentially a very powerful part of this model. Mr. Barragan.
Thank you, Congressman. Early this year, our former Commander-in-Chief, Al Lippard, said, honor the contract. And that's what we ask from everyone who works with with veterans in general, to honor the contract of what was promised to our veterans. When we sign our contract to enlist or serve as an officer in our branches, we honored our contract to the fullest extent, and that's the ask that we're asking the same from other counterparts here. One thing, as we continue to do our due diligence and bringing ourselves up to speed of what's been going on, we see a lot of barriers come up. We see a lot of transparency issues. The Inspector General in 2018 and 2021, like Rob said, had made notes of leases that violated the Leasing Act. But to this day, it continues to be an ongoing issue. So those are just one of the few things that we've seen. From the local side, I can tell you on the Department of California, we recently passed a resolution this year at the department level, or the Veterans Forum Board of the Department of California called for the enactment of legislation to transfer jurisdiction of the North Campus, VA West LA Medical Center, to the National Park Service for the purpose of creating a Pacific Branch National Veterans Park as a residential community for veterans and their families. So we're not talking about a park where you come and barbecue. We're talking about a community where there's a connective tissue to other veterans that we can all migrate and hang out together in the same area without feeling that we're different. All veterans can connect with each other regardless of generation. We've all gone through something very similar. We've all served, and from our perspective, we must honor the contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barragan. I was just thinking about that, so thank you for doing that. Go ahead, Sal.
Thank you, Congressman Takano. My name is Salvatore Grammatico. I've been active at the VA National Soldiers Home for the Disabled for more than 20 years. I know many of the members, veterans on the table, and I've worked with them. The first thing that I would like to talk about is oversight. Oversight is non-existent at the VA home, and the doors need to be open. Being a past member of the Veteran Patient Advisory Council, it was put to mothball during the COVID virus period, and it's never been reacted or retroacted. I had the bylaws and I submitted it to staff, and they've just been playing back and forth. Somehow they have a problem with some of the language in there. If it was okay in 2015, I don't know why is it that it needs to be changed now. That's the first part of it. Going back to some of the conversation that have been going on right now, I've been active in my community, which is the Mar Vista community, for 50 years. I didn't know that Mr. Garcia, Diego, was a member of the Mar Vista Gardens. I'm glad of that, because I had worked with the Clinton administration when he was in office that they put the fence around it. And it is one of your facilities that we were fighting there because we were having a lot of drug and gang problems, which was at your time, Diego, that those things were going on. We were able to take care of that when we had the fence put around the garden and we got extra securities and with the cameras. I hate to say this, that we do have similar type of issues like that right now at the home. We have a lot of drug dealing going on. We have prostitution going on. We have many things. And I think before we can start even planning on adding any more housing there, we need to really look at the plan as to exactly what is it that it's going to be there. because I don't think that the West Side needs an overconcentration of veterans of different aspects that can create that type of atmosphere. One thing that I did like from you, Mr. Takano, is one word that you said. I'm also a real estate broker. You said the word transitional housing. And I think that in itself needs to be made part of the plan as to what percentage at the home is going to be transitional housing versus permanent housing versus housing for the veterans that are being treated while they're going through all of their different procedures, including psychological, physical, and everything else. That aspect of the issue has not even been addressed. And I think that needs to be done because that is the main purpose as to why the home exists. Everybody is worried about, oh, let's build another 5,000 units there. So what are you going to accomplish? You want more veteran voters to come there? That's not going to solve the issues. And the thing about it is that the biggest problem also is, let's say if you put 10, 15, 20,000 residential units there, what is that going to do to the eco-environment of the entire home? That in itself needs to be analyzed because like it happened to Diego's place at the Mar Vista Gardens, you're going to start having guys fighting against each other. We have the problem already to where we only have a couple of thousand housing units where you got drug dealing, prostitution, and all of those things. And there is a big problem right now going on between who is taking care of the policing. Is it the VA police, LAPD, county police? Nobody knows what's going on. And the supervisor left, here, I would like for her to answer that particular question because that's a big issue. Safety is a very big issue, and that needs to be addressed. But the biggest one of it all is that the door to oversight needs to be open between the VA and anybody else from the veteran community that not only wants to participate, we have the right to know exactly what's going on at the VA, how the money is spent, what programs are being initiated, who's getting paid for all of these programs. The books need to be open so that we can see exactly what's going on. Right now, everything is secretive. We do not know what the heck is going on, and that needs to stop. That's all. And I will put this together if you want to. I'll put a statement and mail it to you so that. Well, but I think this should be more than sufficient.
Sal, thank you so much. That was a very eloquent testimony you gave. Mr. Sherman, you want to respond?
The tendency to view housing as either permanent, nice apartment, or a tiny home. And I'd point out that even the nice apartments can be transitional. There are people here who aspire to go on to success in their careers. They'll move out. If you're in real estate, you might find them an apartment or a home to buy if they're doing even better, and somebody else will move in. So not everybody who moves into an apartment needs to stay there the rest of their life.
Before I call on you, Sal, I just want to just add one more thing. So I appreciate you picked up on the word.
But I like to clarify the point that Congressman Sherman just made. Transitional housing, is this on? Transitional housing is for people that are going through their rehabilitation to where they spend whatever their recovery period is there. Once they are totally recovered, they go back home in whatever state that they are, because we do have certain specialty at the home over there. So that's what it should be designed for, not to just bring everybody there and then there's no room for somebody that needs to be there while they're going through their rehabilitation period. That's what I'm saying.
Well, this all needs to be analyzed and considered with the following. How do we pay for the transitional housing? part of the model of how we are raising the finance and how the finance is raising, how it's being raised, is based on the long-term housing. That's how we bundle the HUD-VASH vouchers that provide the financing to actually build the buildings. So if we build, if we're going to build transitional housing, that's going to be something that we can't finance through the idea that a veteran will be living there long term and the voucher is going to pay for the debt, right? So that is going to bear on how much money I'm going to need to ask the appropriators each year, right? So that's why the details, everybody needs to examine all of this, and what was said earlier about veterans from all over the country. They're going to come and live here, or is it transitional housing? What percentage of it's going to be transitional housing? It's all part, and we got to go back to, I would say, the master plan. What is this master plan that people have agreed to? So I want to call on, I think, Mr. Juarez. Mr. Juarez.
Thank you, sir. I want to call your attention to a bureaucrat that was the director at the VA GLHS. When I first met him, besides his business card, he handed out what he called his principal's card, and he said that he only operates on things that are ethical, legal, and moral. That was Mr. Stephen Braverman II. And from what I understand now, he's been terminated from federal service because of some recent wrongdoing. When we talk about who can we trust. The other thing is that I just got a call, I couldn't answer it, from Melody Baker. She was told to sleep outside on Christmas Eve and on Christmas night by the hospital. They escorted her out. She's paraplegic. She's tied to her wheelchair. And she has not only a brilliant person, she's an ADA compliance officer, former ADA compliance officer. She has informed the VA of 55 violations that are present there on the footprint. And also she has informed the building that she's in that it is not ADA compliant. They showed her one book, she showed her the book that is the law right now. As with regard to the settlement that was mentioned, there was no settlement. I received a call from Mark Rosenbaum before he filed that case. It was recorded. He admitted that there was no settlement. It was Rosenbaum, Olson, and Blassie that lied to Judge Otero, saying that the veterans had abandoned the judgment. And I have an email from a VVA officer at that time who confirmed that nobody told him nothing. There was no settlement. And yet that settlement has led to all of this creation of vets advocacy, a design plan that was largely run by Brentwood, and a bunch of fluff that's based on nothing. There was no settlement. Albert Einstein is famous for having said that you cannot solve a problem with the same mentality that created that problem. And I want you to keep that in mind now. Thank you.
Okay, we're about 25, 30 minutes before we got to bring this to an end. And so everybody, I've got Rob over here, Mr. Zenner, Ms. Subtle, Mr. Salas, Mr. Burke, Mr. Burkhart, Mr. Herrera, and Mr. Powers on my list. So if we can be succinct and move through our comments. So Mr. Reynolds, go ahead.
Sure. I just want to go back in and just talk a little bit about the property and things that can be done to help make it a safer environment for veterans. And I just want to start with saying that, with all of these problems that have been brought up, they're very important to be resolved, but also within that, I've witnessed a lot of veterans come off the street, go through a program, and get into housing, and their lives have drastically improved. I know many of them, and I see them on a daily basis. So I just want everyone to know that there are those veterans within this group. And one of the things that we found very early on back in 2020, 2021, when the Veterans Row encampment was going on, is it was really an eye-opening experience to see where the breakdown in services were and where the issues are. And one of the big ones was a lack of same-day services, veterans showing up to try to get shelter, a place to stay. They weren't able to get it. They were turned away. So we'd have drop-in shelters now that are supposed to work where veterans can show up after hours and get a place. Like Juan Mack was saying, that doesn't accommodate females with children. So when they show up at that time, they have nowhere to go. So I think that if we all get together and start discussing these problems, there's a lot of common sense solutions to work through a lot of these problems. And I also think when we're talking about temporary housing on the property, whether that be someone is just there to transition to get employment or they're there waiting to live on campus or on the property, that there's a lot of different opportunities to make it a little different than it is today. For example, the CTRS program, which is the tiny home program on the property, that is a harm reduction model, which I think is very important. That allows veterans to come in off the streets that have substance abuse issues and have a place to stay. And I will say that watching veterans from when they were out on the street come in, I do see the drug use go down. When that Veterans Row encampment was out there, we were calling the ambulance every other day for an overdose. And that still happens today, but it's not nearly to the level that it used to be happening. And so with that, I talked to a lot of veterans and I spend a lot of time down there at the tiny homes. And there's veterans down there that are sober, that would like to have a program similar to that, where they can be around other veterans that are sober. So they can be in that environment and work towards getting back into job placement or getting into housing. And also there's a need for more wraparound services when it comes to our veterans with severe mental illness. We deal a lot with that with veterans that have very severe mental illness that need a lot more resources. So I think when it comes to the property and figuring out ways to go forward to make this successful, if you had things set up where you have the harm reduction model for people to come in off the street that have a substance abuse issue, you have an area for those to come in that are not struggling with substance abuse, they can be with one another. You also have an area that's meant for those with the severe mental illness that really need case management. And there's a team at the VA that works really well. It's called the MICM team, Mental Health Intensive Case Management. Now, I believe they're underfunded and there needs to be more staff. They do an excellent job for the veterans that they can see to really follow those with severe mental illness and go with them every step of the way through the process, help make sure they're medication compliant, and it's very successful, but they're not able to accept all the veterans that are in that category. So I see a lot of times where someone would need that full line of wraparound services that they're not able to get it. And that leads to evictions from the apartments. So again, with all of this and bringing in more opportunity for work, and just want to reiterate, if we just keep sitting down and having these conversations, I really believe there's a way to make this work, make it successful, and get our veterans off the street. And say again that when we're talking about these concerns about safety and security, this is why I'm concerned about the project at the Armory to bring in a civilian component of 167 or 5-bed shelter. That seems very dangerous to do at this point in time when we are dealing with drug issues, and bringing that into the mix, I just feel could really cause a detriment to the safety of veterans on that property. Obviously, I want all people to not be on the street and get housed, but maybe another location would be good. And so just thank you.
I wasn't aware of that last comment you made. I'm going to ask questions about that armory that you just mentioned. Thank you, Rob. Mr. Zenner.
Yeah, Rob actually touched on some of the things that I wanted to touch on, the need for severe mental illness veterans to get help with that. At the Department of Mental Health, we see over 1,200 veterans, and there's no military cultural competency in those programs. And so expanding the MICM program here in West LA would be a huge benefit. Also, just we got to stop relying on the point in time count, in my opinion. Point in time count is just way off. We all kind of feel, all of us service providers feel like there's no way that those numbers are that high. We're not running into as many veterans on the streets as the street outreach is happening. And, we need to start looking at the by name list. And by putting more focus on the by name list, you'll put more incentive for the continuum of cares to get our stuff together to get all the veterans to the VA, so we have a more accurate by name list.
I want to congratulate you on the by name, the whole by name approach that you do here in LA. And I agree with you. In past point in time counts, the veteran numbers are just not, what they say. And but this severe mental illness is if we can get our hands around that with veterans, I feel like we get some hope with how we deal with it in the non-veteran population as well. But it just if we can figure out the right approach.
Yeah, to be honest, with the MICM program, they screen out anybody with any kind of substance abuse. And we all know that you need to treat the co-occurring disorder together and not separate the mental health from the substance use. And so that's probably because they don't have enough resource that they have to, because they can't support all the veterans, but with co-occurring.
We have to get, I think, very serious about this issue. That's the most. So I'd like to spend more time on that, but we got to move on. But I definitely want to highlight for all the media and press that are listening, and this is a real key area, this severe mental illness. Don't separate the drug and the mental health components apart. They go together. I feel like it's a big part of our non-veteran homeless issue as well. And I wish I had a better sense as someone who sees homelessness all around the country and all around our state. Just what kind of resources do we need to address this issue generally, not just in our veteran population? Ms. Subtle, go ahead.
Yes, there was a couple things, even to the last point about not an accurate number for homeless veterans. Well, the issue is not everybody is asking people if they're veterans. For example, there's homeless people on the side of the 110 freeway, and you have Caltrans that comes out to remove encampments, and they have their own homelessness and encampment service team. Is it required for them to ask the person if they are a veteran? A lot of people don't ask people if they're veteran. It's the reason why I had to do a bill proposal for family court, because they weren't asking people if they're veterans. So maybe there needs to be a requirement for all offices, services, agencies to ask people if they're veterans, and that's not happening. Not even with DCSF, Department of Children and Family Services. They're working on it right now, but they don't ask people if they're veterans when they're taking their children. So that's on that issue. But also somebody has talked about homelessness decreasing for veterans, but there was a report that came out last year from the VA that said it increased with women veterans. And as you heard from other people here, there's not a lot of housing or homeless shelters for women with children. So that, probably is the reason why. Also, someone mentioned that healthcare needs to be a part of this. Right now, there's a lot of staff and programs being cut from the VA. This West LA VA is not the only VA in this area. There's Long Beach VA, some other VAs. Yeah, what is it? Sepulveda. There's one on Temple Street. Even with the Long Beach VA, I know of a nurse that just recently got cut. She'd been waiting for years to be in an RN position. She'd been working for years at a lower position, waiting for an RN position. It never came open for her. There's also the PTSD program in Long Beach that's being cut. A lot of veterans are disappointed about that. There's a group therapy session for PTSD. They were just notified it's being cut. I guess there's Vision, someone from National is coming down, doing inspections and cutting programs and cutting staff. So that needs to be looked into. You're talking about getting veterans healthcare, but at the same time, healthcare is being cut, programs are being cut, VA staff is being cut. And then, about the homelessness problem here, just prioritizing retail spaces in town center is not the answer. Housing needs to come first. Even with LA, period, there's 75,000 homeless people in Los Angeles. So that's a problem with homelessness all the way around. And then LA has thousands more homeless people than any other city or state, in the United States. So it is a serious problem here.
All right. Well, thank you, Ms. Suttles. Mr. Salas.
Thank you. Just want to expand a little bit about what's been said. One of the things that is very interesting to me is this is one of the few places where we actually have enough existing resources to solve this issue. And it's really, we have to ask ourselves why we have so many homeless veterans when we've gotten the vouchers to house every single homeless veteran that's here in LA County. So something is not working within the system. And we really have to ask ourselves that question as to what we can do better to make sure that we house every homeless veteran. Certainly, there are some regulatory and statutory changes that we can make to the program to fix it. So certainly, I will provide that to you, Congressman, in terms of the things that I think are important to make the program easier to utilize, to remove barriers to access for veterans who this program is meant to help, the VASH program. We've got, for example, enough vouchers to project base and build more housing on the West LA VA campus. But I've got a statutory cap that I'm going to be hitting next year. So I cannot use some of my available VASH vouchers once I hit that cap. So I'd love to be able to remove that barrier so that we can build more housing, more supportive housing for veterans. To Ms. Suttle's point, I was taken also by her point about not being, and I hope I'm paraphrasing it correctly, broken enough to get services sometimes or to get access to resources. I think that sometimes these programs mirror others, and vets have unique sets of circumstances that I think that we need to remove those barriers so that these income barriers and some of these other things that stand in the way of getting continued assistance. The service component is one that I also see is unbelievably important. Right now, for every vet that I'm housing with a voucher, I'm losing on the back end because they didn't turn in their income packet or because they failed to do something administratively because there wasn't a service provider that was there to help them do that. So we're losing just as many, we're kind of running it, in place. And we need to do better as a system to figure out that issue. But I think as far as resources, we have them. We have them here. We just need to use them better and also just make some tweaks to regulations and to the law to make sure that we can be more efficient.
Okay, I'm going to refrain from comment. I just want to get through as many people as I can. Mr. Burke. Is it Mr. Mr. Burkhart? Sorry, Mr. Burke. There's Mr. Burke and there's Mr. Burkhart.
Okay, thank you, sir. Couple of items. Just we hear about the problem of breaking up money or bringing money in. Might I be so bold as to suggest that the individuals who already hold expensive land in West LA, such as Brentwood, UCLA, and so forth, perhaps we should look at doing something to review their current leases in land use or how they are currently using the land, and if it is indeed legal. And at the very least, could we negotiate a more equitable lease for those lands that these people currently occupy that could help the cause for our veterans in West LA? I also think that strong congressional backing is going to have to be part of to accelerate housing. I think the executive order that the president brought forward, National Center for Warrior Independence, if this is to be a reality, I believe that this has to be watched. Implementation has to be watched as this thing grows or it comes together, because we've heard horror stories from my fellow veterans, and here today, and I see congressional backing needed, and we need to ensure wraparound services that will also help our veterans, and we don't hear about girls being in the dorm, or we don't hear about they can't get services, they can't get food, they can't get this, they can't get that. That is a horror story, and it should never happen in this land of plenty. Our veterans are worth every dime that we give them, and we should be able to provide them with the services and the housing that they need, whatever it takes. And I think we need to think about how we move forward and how we look at getting housing, but not only housing. We have to, the only guys getting money through housing is the contractors. Once the contract's done, they're done, and our veterans are sitting there, perhaps, as we've heard today, with no food, no housing, none of the other stuff that they need to wrap around services to make things happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commander. Mr. Burkhart. Ms. Burkhart, sorry.
Oh, hi. I work with the sorry. I've been working with the National Equity Fund for 30 plus years and have been doing supportive housing for just as long. So I've watched the growth of public policy, affordable housing finance, and changes like in 2008, the beginning of the expansion of this original VASH program that started in the late 90s. And 17 years later, we need to do some tweaks in the VASH program, the HUD VASH program. And Emilio brought up a very good point that one is that, it started out that they didn't want to use HUD VASH vouchers for leveraging and project basing. And then they said, oh, every housing authority has the discretion to project base 100% of the vouchers if they so choose in order to build more units and lock in affordability. And here in California, it's for 55 years. But the housing authorities are hamstrung by another rule, where there's an annual allocation which can be used for project basing, and the housing authority can do no more than 20% of its authorized voucher units, with an additional 10% increase in the cap if you're providing supportive housing. We need to lift that cap to 30%, 40%, just based on a plan that the housing authority provides. And I think that this is an example of what Emilio was getting at. We have resources, and also what I think Rob Reynolds was bringing up. We have programs that are helping many veterans. Veterans love. I've been running a Vets Initiative since 2009. I sit on the board since that time with the National Coalition for Homeless Vets. I've been raising funds to build. We've built on 14 VA medical campuses, EULs, and we can reflect now, of what's working and what's not working, and we need to tweak the case management approach to the VAs. Where I asked my developer, Core Companies, was one of the other developers on the VA medical campus, and I said, how's your leasing process going? He said, it would be great if folks were application ready for the property manager applications by the VA case managers. If we're leveraging, we have rules and different programs we have to meet, and we need to educate the VA case managers in order to work with the team so that they can get the paperwork in so we're not losing them on the back end. So there's that piece. And then I want to speak to the design. We have 500 units that are operational on the campus. And I've seen a variety of design over there, and I've been working in this field for a long time. I come from a design post-occupancy evaluation in my early days of my work. And I really think there's some properties are 1 bedrooms, some are rehabbed, it sounds like SRO units. Some have fobs, some have buzzers. We could kind of go there and look at a listening session on design and come up with a design program for the future of future units being built on the campus. So why repeat the same design mistakes when we have a campus in a microcosm? And we also have Sepulveda VA has 2 rehab buildings over there that we could look at. So I just wanted to say, some of these issues can be addressed with some a bit of research and a bit with your staff, and so we can just draft up some of these ideas. But I just wanted to give you 2 easy ones today. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dr. Burkhart. Sorry, Ms. Gendred, you earlier. I see my colleague who sits on the Financial Services Committee. I'm not sure they have the jurisdiction on these caps. It may come from another committee, but he's taking notes on the CAPS issue. Let me call on Mr. Dr. Herrera. Dr. Herrera.
Thank you. Thank you, Congressman. Joel Herrera, State Commander for the American GI Forum, California.
Great to see
I'm
you.
in Roe Canis District.
Wonderful.
Yes. So just I want to say that as we go forward, for us to model your office, especially your team, to model what we want to see in others, especially the transparency in our communication and our actions. And also that we would continue to provide information, especially vetted information, so that we have a reliable source for what's going on. And our continued attempts at bipartisan resolution, because this is not a political issue, and not to ever give up on that, even if we continue to get the no's. There's someone that I grew up with that I went to school in his neighborhood by the name of Cesar Chavez. He's a Navy veteran. And Dolores Huerta, not him, came up with the phrase, si se puede. So we continue with that, please, with that attitude. And finally, the best words I heard all day came from my carnal over here. That means my brother, David Etchavaria. And I just want to point out that he said earlier, let's stop war. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Herrera. Is it Mr. Powers? Go, oh, there you are, sir.
Yeah, I'd just like to follow up on some of the things that the people have said. I'm going to start with the gentleman down there who was talking about the contract. I think it's important to say what that social contract is. It is, it's less than 1% of the population serves in the military every year. And when we sign up, we agree to fight this nation's wars, and if necessary, give our lives for it. In exchange, we expect that you guys will train us and equip us to be the best out there. And I think you guys have done that part. But the other part is when we come home, if we need help, we expect you to be there for us. And I think most of us feel like you're not there. So I've heard a lot of different things like, well, the one gentleman says, oh, we need to keep going with the 2016 plan. Why? It has been a complete disaster. The VA didn't follow it. And in fact, it had to be revised. So as we go forward, I think we need to throw out all of the things that we've tried that don't work and start with some new things. Now, let me just address the HUD-VASH vouchers because this is one of my pet peeves. Those things have an expiration date. And too many times veterans run up against that expiration date, and instead of extending it, they make you go through the whole entire process again. Fill out all the paperwork, wait the months for it to be processed, just to get another voucher, which will then expire. How about you don't issue the voucher until the person has a place that he wants to move into? Then you won't have to worry about expiration dates. And finally, I forgot what my other point was, but that's good enough for me.
Well, those are great points you made. I appreciate it. Mr. Schwada, John Schwada.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to call everyone's attention to the fact that there is a movement afoot to try to stop the Armory project as it's now currently designed. That project is the one on the Armory property on Federal Avenue. It calls for, as currently designed, it calls for 167 beds and the property. The neighborhood, I was approached by people who own property in the area, and they asked me to assist them in gathering a petition to stop the project. It didn't take long for me to find out from Rob Reynolds that it's not just the neighbors who are concerned about the project, it's also the veterans. And as Mr. I think he's left now. Mr. Juarez pointed out this property was and still is a part of the Bandini-Jones bequest. The agreement that was made that was that the property would forever be used for the purpose of benefiting the veterans. If you go to do a title report on that property at this time, you will find that the property is still encumbered by that Bandini-Jones covenant. And we also found more recently that with Judge Carter that he established that the Bandini Covenant is still alive and well, and it's legal and enforceable, and yet the county continues to pretend as if that doesn't exist. That's extraordinary. I suspect that they believe that they have the resources that are paid for by taxpayers to fight any kind of legal action that might be taken against them. But in any event, I want you all to know that there is a petition that is being circulated. There are several of you here who are already aware of that. I would be more than happy to assist you in accessing that petition. Thank you.
Okay, we have 3 more speakers, and we're right up against the break time, the end time. But I want these 3 speakers to have their chance to voice. So Mr. Allman, is it Ms. Oliva, and Ms. Monet. So Mr. Allman, go ahead.
Thank you, Ranking Member. I appreciate it. I think one of the things that when we talk about unit counts, we don't talk about diversity in housing stock. For example, there are other types of housing that I think would be appropriate. In 2023, the VCLEB adopted a recommendation that you might appreciate as a former educator to house student veterans on this campus. We heard veterans talk about the need for going back to school, using their GI Bill, learning from each other, moving on from that experience, getting jobs and being able to afford the cost of living in Los Angeles. VA doesn't do that. VA wouldn't even put the request for turnover costs in their budget. When we talk about the PACT Act, the 361 to 380, VA didn't ask for that. You shoved it on their lap. It was the VCLEB who heard the presentation 2 weeks after Master Plan 2022 was adopted, and it said the master plan is out of our budget. This agency is not incentivized to create a successful outcome for veterans on the campus. It can't dispose of the property, and so it's allowing leaseholders to occupy the property. And I think we need to be very careful about how we allow them to do that. So I think we should build 5,000, 6,000 units, but we should think about the diversity in housing stock. We need student veteran housing. We need VA workforce housing. As you know, the Office of Inspector General issued a report that VA can't hire police. What have we heard? Public safety issues. VA can't utilize their existing supply of vouchers. They can't make the referrals, and they can't provide adequate case management. VA needs to be able to house veterans who want to be caseworkers on that campus because they're not going to drive from Riverside. And we also need to think about fixed income senior veterans. We need to think about, to Mr. Juarez's point, getting proactive about homelessness. The past 10 years has been about housing veterans who are already homeless, and we're not getting ahead of the problem. And VA isn't even budgeting to stay on top of the existing problem. So one of the things that we put forward, and I've been very fortunate to get the LA Community College District to agree to study the issue, is utilizing sources of funding that have nothing to do with HUD-VASH. So for example, we can use the GI Bill, basic housing allowance, as the same thing as a voucher. The LA Community College District has money dedicated to build student housing throughout the district, and they've agreed to study developing student veteran specific housing on the campus. VA not interested.
Okay, I see Mr. Sherman writing down the whole GI Bill.
He knows how to get
I'm just
hold
going
of
to
it.
tell Mr. Sherman, don't take every one of these ideas because I need to spread the wealth around our colleagues. Okay, you can't have every one of the veterans' bills that come out of this. Meeting.
Financial services.
Okay, thank you. You're going to save me some problems with our colleagues. All right. Is it Ms. Oliva?
Yeah, I'm over here.
Yes, Ms. Oliva, go ahead.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much for inviting me here. I'm one of the people who came from Washington, D.C. So my expertise is not specific to this campus. I've been working on the issue of homelessness for more than 30 years. I am the person, when you said there's a person here who is one of the architects of the HUD-VASH program, that's me. I have federal no, I didn't, please don't do that. That's, but thank you. I was in federal service at the Department of Housing and Urban Development for 10 years between 2007 and 2017. And I served as the vice chair for the advisory committee for homeless veterans for the VA, which, by the way, has not been re-upped in this administration. And we would very much like to pressure VA to get that advisory
So tell me
committee
what
back
needs to
in.
be re-upped? Tell me.
So the Advisory Committee on Homeless Veterans is an official advisory committee at the VA. We advise the secretary. And under this administration, we have not been charged. Our charter has not been put forward for this year. And so the last class ended at the end of the Biden administration, and we have not been sort of reconvened as an advisory committee to the secretary.
I'll say in a very neutral, non-accusatory manner, I just hope the administration, the president and the secretary, if they hear this, we need to reanimate that advisory committee.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's one thing. So I just want to offer a couple of things. First is I'm currently the CEO of the National Alliance to End Homelessness, and I'm going to offer to all of you here who are working on these really critical issues here at the LA campus, our expertise. We don't bring expertise on this campus, but we know what works in other places. I bring my own expertise around federal programs. Catherine Monet, who I'm about to put a spotlight on, brings her own expertise, and we work here in the state of California and have a presence in Los Angeles. So I'd be happy to sit down with anybody who wants to convene experts around what's working in other places. I've heard that idea a number of times today. And then I just want to note a couple of things. I was asked to talk a little bit about what's next and some of the things that the National Alliance to End Homelessness is tracking that might impact the work that we're doing here in Los Angeles to end veteran homelessness. And of course, we're tracking the executive order. And like many of the folks here, including Mr. Reynolds and others, I was happy to have some attention put on this issue by the White House. However, that is not the only thing that we are tracking. We are looking at the budgets that are being put forth by the administration, and there are a number of things that give us an indication of where this administration is going that give me great pause. And the first is capping rental assistance at 2 years, including HUD-VASH rental assistance. And I think that would be a grave mistake. I hope that Congress provides some oversight on some of these decisions that are being made by the administration and does not provide appropriations just to blanket make the decision that all rental assistance would be capped at 2 years. It also has put forward proposals to move all of the rental assistance to the VA. And I've heard a number of times here that the VA doesn't have the capacity to provide the services that are so critically needed to our veterans who are already experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness. And adding another layer of expertise to the VA does not sound like the right decision to make in this constrained environment. There are housing authorities all over the country who know how to do rental assistance, and I don't really understand, and maybe we'll see in this plan, what they mean when they say rental assistance really should be administered by the VA, when we actually have heard many times today that the VA doesn't have the capacity to do the things that that they're expert in and that we critically need them to do. And then I guess the last thing that I would echo is I've heard from a number of my colleagues today that we need to have a mix of different types of housing and services available for all the different kinds of needs that we're seeing among veterans. And I would absolutely agree with that. I was an architect of the HUD-VASH program. That program needs to be modernized. The thing that we built in 2008 is not the thing that reflects the needs that we have today in our communities all over the country. We have 17,000 HUD-VASH vouchers that are not in use right now nationwide. That is a tragedy. And we need to modernize these programs and build them in a way that the capacity can be flexed over time when needs change, because needs are not static. When we built the original HUD-VASH, we were really addressing the needs of OEF, OIF veterans, and those needs have shifted. over time. So I would also encourage all of us to be thinking about, when we're problem solving, prevention, to Mr. Beglin's point. We need to make the handoff from active military service to housing a better process so that folks aren't falling through the cracks. We need to ensure that folks have somewhere to go. Part of the problem here in LA is that there's not enough affordable housing for anybody, including veterans. So to say that you want to cap rental assistance at 2 years, or that transitional housing is the thing that's going to solve the problem, it only solves the problem if there's somewhere for folks to go, and there isn't somewhere for folks, including veterans, to go that is affordable to them. So we actually have to support the budgets at HUD that provide the pipeline of affordable housing for everybody, in addition to ensuring that we have enough money to provide rental assistance for veterans who are experiencing homelessness, who are at risk of homelessness, or who just need a voucher in order to transition to whatever their goals are in life. And I'll stop there because obviously I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about all of this. I've spent a lot of my career working on it. So thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you, Ms. Oliva, and thank you so much. The inventor of the HUD Bash, we love you. Many of you are learning about each other for the very first time. So I hope relationships will start to grow out of this. I just will mention one more thing before I will give Ms. Monet the last word. The next to the last word, because I'll have the final word. But it has to do with the VASP, the end of the VASP program, which I thought was a mistake. The Congress did come back with a partial claims program, but I'm worried about those really endangered mortgages that these two programs are supposed to address. I don't think that the partial claims program is going to solve what VASP would have addressed. So I think some people are going to fall through the cracks there. So getting back to homelessness prevention, this is also part of all of that.
Prevention can be a lot of different things. It doesn't have to just be cash. It can be a lot of different things working together.
That's right. That's right. So I just wanted, for those who are monitoring this roundtable, I want to bring up VASP and partial claims as part of the prevention mechanisms that VA did have and does have now. Ms. Monet, go ahead.
Thank you for having me. I want to start by commending you and your team for opening this panel with veterans who've got lived experience and who are here all the time. I feel like in DC, it's very uncommon to see that. And so I just want to say thank you, first of all. I've got just 4 things to say. And I think the first is that I share your concerns about transparency. When I've asked the administration for information about any of these executive orders, I've basically been told that we will give information to advocates after we give it to Congress and see whether they like it or not, which is an interesting approach, but their approach nonetheless. I think we heard a lot today about the mix of services and supports and housing, and I am in Camp Ann, right? When you don't have anywhere to go, transitional housing is great, but people got to go somewhere. And so I do think it's important that as you're thinking about numbers and goals, you're really taking a look at the population you've got out there, your inflow into homelessness, what your capacity is, right? And whether you're using all of it, right? Like in terms of occupancy, do you have transitional housing that's going unused or that can be repurposed? What are we doing about lengths of stay? And are there good move-on strategies that aren't, detrimental to veterans, to really take an informed look at how much you need of what? I think the third thing that I sort of had pause on is related to, this campus being a national center of excellence where everybody comes. And that's not to say that I don't think it could be a national center, but I do think that in other communities where we've seen great concentrations of transitional housing and more of a regional approach, there have been some major struggles to think through housing placements when folks are getting ready to leave. Right? Like if they want to go back to where they are, to Missouri or Alaska, how does a case manager here in LA find housing given what you need to know about the housing markets, the landlords, the developments, and all of that? So I think if we're truly pursuing a national approach, you probably need to be really disciplined about, what happens next and how you really equip case managers to do that effectively with veterans and in partnership. And the last thing that I'll say is that I heard a lot about safety today, and some things that were new to me and shocking, and probably things that I'll have to ask partners in VA about, because wow. I think safety is a really big factor here, right? And if you're truly thinking about putting 7,000 more people living on a campus, your safety approach becomes real important. And I don't dislike the VA police, right? But I don't want to see this turn into a scenario where there are a bunch of veterans who are over-policed and underprotected. And I hope that you'll look to other strategies, potentially community policing or more peer supports, or other things to really fill in the gaps that aren't only the traditional clinical approaches or VA police approaches that VA would look to, I guess. And I think the last thing, and I know I said I only had 4, I actually have 5 because I'm a big liar. But the last thing is that, there are some things that y'all can do in terms of the appropriations process to really make sure that VA's got sufficient resources to serve this population. I think as we've seen the executive order on crime in DC be rolled out, there have been some really interesting things happen. It's been a little bit chaotic, and it's felt like the VA Medical Center has needed a lot more support in terms of just crisis response tools and bed capacity. And LA was not one of the cities, right, in the administration's short list of places that they'd like to go next. But
Yes, it was.
I would not, it was.
It was.
So I think that's probably something that you need to prepare for, right? And like things that you could fund are, reactivating funding for VA Section 4201 program, or actually providing funding to increase the GPD rate. You could look at housing resources and more EWLs and different things like that to really be able to scale and increase capacity so that you're ready to serve veterans, right? And they don't just get fined, ticketed, arrested, or whatnot for being outside, because that's quite frankly a problem we created and they shouldn't have to deal with.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Monet. Brad, are you looking to say something?
I'm just going to say thank you, Ranking Member Mark Takano. You brought us all together. This has been an enlightening conversation. Maybe next time with Republicans, and you have devoted such tremendous amount of time to a location that's in my district, but to your dedication to veterans, it shows.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Congressman Sherman, and thank you for all the time you've put here. I saw you taking notes furiously, and I know you want to start translating this into legislative verbiage. I want to thank all the participants today. We covered a lot of ground, but there's still a lot of work to do, and I promised you in my opening I would be back out here to do it again and to continue this conversation. And I want to reiterate that promise now. Next time, we're clearly going to need a bigger table, considering the obvious interest. We had people come up from the audience and the passion from the veteran community about the Soldiers' Home. We do have the president's attention, and that's a good thing. I want to make sure that we really try to inform his attention as much as we can. I'll work with my staff to think of ways that we can create venues for all veterans and all stakeholders' voices to be heard. The next time we gather, I hope that VA and my committee colleagues from both sides of the aisle will join us here in LA. I'm ready to get to work. We are ready. We are going to have to pass legislation, both authorizing and appropriating legislation, to bring a number of the ideas we discussed today to fruition. It isn't going to be easy, but defeat does not seem to be a word that anyone in this room has in their vocabulary. I know that, especially the Marines. But yeah. All right, the Army, the Navy, Space Force, and everybody else too. Okay. Without you all, the Soldiers' Home would likely still be in ruins and disrepair, and the number of veterans experiencing homelessness in LA would still be rising and falling. Together, I know that we can rebuild the Soldiers' Home and end veteran homelessness in Los Angeles and across America. I look forward to seeing you all back here in LA soon. And the decision I got to make before I drive back to Riverside is whether I spike my blood sugar by going to Al and B's and having a bean and cheese burrito in Jimmy Gomez's district.
Do it.
All right. Thank you all. This meeting is adjourned.
Hey, we've got. Hey, we got one more thing here, folks. It's very important. Here you go, Tom. Here you go, Tom. Right here. Here you go, Tom.
Hello. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as you know, I'm the national president for VBA, and I've been chasing Congressman Chicano across the country. And so I have this opportunity here today, and I wasn't going to let it go by. So I want you to know that the Vietnam Veterans of America have chosen Mark Chicano as our 2024 Legislator of the Year.